Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting back to order, and I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Ms. Hodges, absent. Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Oden?
Here.
Ms. Roller Spurgeon?
Here.
Mr. Kleindienst?
Here. I'd like to express a couple of comments to the community with regards to Miss Dana Hodges. First of all, it was Dana's birthday on June 1st, over the weekend. I had an occasion to speak with her today for quite some time. She sounded great. She sounded very energetic, very upbeat. She was unable to attend tonight's meeting, and due to the situation she is dealing with, it is, I believe, the council's unanimous consent that we excuse her officially from tonight's meeting and give her the time necessary to recuperate and to gain her strength. And hopefully there are intents of her at least trying to come back in future meetings. And everywhere I go, people ask about her condition. Again, I am pleased to tell you, after talking with her for about 15 minutes today, she sounded like the Dana we all know and love.
Good.
So she sounded very good. And I told Dana I would welcome her back, both her smiles and her sneers, because I've seen both over the dozen years I've been with her. But again, I want to report clearly it is the best I have heard her sound in a very long time. She misses being here. She misses helping the city she loves. But for all record purposes, official otherwise, she's excused officially from tonight's meeting. We'll turn now to a flag salute. If you'll all please rise, the Boy Scouts will bring the flag forward. Gentlemen. That's done. Oh, yeah?
Color guard, prepare to advance. Advance. Color guard, prepare to post colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard, post colors. Color guard, salute. 2. Color guard, regroup. Color guard, dismissed.
What do you think? Pretty good job? I thought it was great. Tough act to follow. Let's see who it is. Oh, it's our invocation. Pastor Jim is here from Palm Springs Presbyterian. Pastor Griffiths, good to see you, sir. Pleasure.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, I noticed that President Bush, when he met with the Saudi leaders, invoked God Almighty. And it's always a good idea to invoke God's presence whenever we meet, whenever there are decisions to be made. I call it the pray, act, and trust, getting things down pat here. And let's pray. God Almighty, we pray for Dana Hodges. We're glad to hear of her recovery. We pray for continued good recovery there. We're thankful for each and every one of these council people and our mayor. Bless them. And on this meeting tonight, we simply ask not only your presence be here, but also your blessing, that we might share in your wisdom, in your strength, and your courage for the upbuilding of this community. For we pray it in the name of God Almighty. Amen.
I should announce that we do have overflow seating in the large conference room. It's accessible by just simply going around the outside building. The door is open. It's air conditioned. There are seats. TV's playing. We'll give you time if you want to come in and speak. I think our fire marshal has a couple of concerns about the density of people here. So if we can get some of you to actually go over there and be comfortable, Again, you'll see it just as well as you would at home on TV, and probably more comfortably than standing on the sidelines. We have no presentation scheduled tonight. I'll ask the city clerk for a report on the posting of tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the agenda you had before you was posted in accordance with council procedures last Friday, May 30th. The council and the agency was given additional materials tonight concerning the two public hearings for the budget process. In addition, the applicants have requested that CRA A be withdrawn. The city manager is requesting items 6, 7, and 16 be continued to a adjourned meeting on June the 11th. And item 10 on your consent agenda should reflect a term of 3 years rather than 1 year.
Item 10, was it?
Item 10 would be a term of 3 years rather than 1 year. Items 6, 7, and 16 continue to June 11th.
Very good. Okay, council clear on those amendments? Thank you. I'll now turn to our city attorney for a report on the closed session. Mr. Alshire.
Yes, on the closed session agenda, the agency agenda, the real property negotiation items involving the Plaza Theater, the Brussels Building, John Westman, the Tom Hantages, Principal, Happy Valley, the item with Jerry Johnson concerning the property at Cherokee and East Palm Canyon, the Garden Springs apartment item involving Jack Casper. None of those items, those first 5 items, were discussed in closed session. The real property negotiation item involving Walter Family Partnership, we gave a status report on that negotiation. No action was taken. For the city, the real property negotiations involving Desert Water Agency, we gave a status report. No action was taken. The 3 items involving the parking structure, lease of parking spaces, those items were not discussed. The item involving real property negotiations with the golf course with Bill Swank, we gave a status report. No action was taken. The item involving real property negotiations with the Nichols Family Trust at Tramway Road, we gave that was not discussed. The litigation matters, the item involving People versus Wilkinson, we gave a status report. No action was taken. The item involving Vargas was not discussed. Exposure litigation in 2 cases, we discussed 1 case. No action was taken in that case. The potential to initiate litigation was not discussed, and the labor negotiations with the MAPS and the general unit, we gave status reports on those negotiations. Direction was given for further negotiations. No action was taken.
Thank you, Mr. Alshire. The Housing Authority, the Financing Authority, the Industrial Development Authority have no business scheduled for tonight. Before we move into our regularly scheduled agenda, I think due to the large citizen participation, I'm going to recommend, council, that we now move immediately to item number 8, which is the final map for El Dorado LLP for condominium purposes. And I will then, let's see, I think what I'm going to do is allow public comments on this item and this item only for this accelerated item on the agenda. And then we'll have a staff report and we'll have council deliberation. So I have 2 cards currently in front of me requesting to speak on item 8. I believe Mr. Will Constantine is here representing a large portion of the residents. Mr. Constantine, and I understand if you had the opportunity to speak that you would represent people and perhaps others would not speak, allowing you to represent them. Is that true? Correct. And how much time would you need, sir? I'd need 5 to 10 minutes. That's very good, sir. And then I have Catherine Robertson. Now, is there anyone else on the opposing side of Mr. Constantine that would also wish an extended period of time so that their comments could represent others, not just extending their own period of time, but somehow be a representative of another faction or another segment of the El Dorado community? Because we'd obviously afford you an ample amount of time comparable to perhaps Mr. Constantine's time.
Sue Lofton on behalf of the applicant.
Fine. Sue, fill out a card, give it to the city clerk. We'll make sure we'll give you the... Okay. Who wants first up? How do I do this? Do you have a preference as to who wants to go first? Okay. Sue, you want to come up first? Sue, I'm going to set clock at 10. Is that good? Now, do you want all 10?
I'm going to actually reserve time to rebut. We concur with the staff report.
Let's get a little legal clarification. We're kind of outside the normal procedures. Normally, it's a 3-minute allocation. You're reserving time to rebut. We're not that sophisticated when it comes to public comments, really.
I mean, the comment period will not be after the staff report. We're doing public comments now. So when you say rebut, it sounds like you're wishing to speak after Mr. Constantine?
Correct.
So are you asking that after their comments? I think if the council wants to give you a set 10 minutes, then you can use that however you want it. Is it, Mr. Mayor, is it your thinking that all the speakers on one side have 10 minutes and all the speakers on the other side, and they organize it however they want? Is that what you're thinking?
I'm suggesting that, from what I've been told by the Madam Clerk, is that Mr. Constantine represents others, and he wants an allocation of additional time. And if Sue wants an allocation of comparable time, what we can do is give you 5 up front and then 5 to rebut. Want to do it that way?
Okay, let's,
Yeah, I know. You want to go up first, Bill? Let's get this started. We'll get Bill. Again, I'll allocate 10 minutes. If you'll go to the microphone, there's a clock in front of Ms. Rella Spurgeon, one in front of me. Again, the clock counts down from 10. It'll start flashing as you near the last, I think, 15 seconds or so.
Where's the clock?
Right in front of the councilwoman and one
okay.
right here, okay?
Thank
You
you.
see the clock right there? Do you see it?
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I guess after all that, everybody knows who I am, but for the record, I'm William J. Constantine. I'm the attorney for the El Dorado Homeowners Association, who's strongly opposed to the final map approval, but even more so, we're opposed to this outline of a settlement understanding that I was just handed about 5 minutes ago. Had never seen any of these terms before. And this isn't a compromise. This gives the park owner much more than if you would simply just approve of the final map the way he's asking it right now. Now, before I get into that, I would like everybody who's supporting the position of the Homeowners Association to stand up to show to this City Council. Okay, now you can sit down. So we avoided all those people talking. I think it's a very efficient use of our time. What this does is it doesn't make any compromise at all. I think to start with, what you have to look at is a resolution that you passed many months ago to approve the tentative map, and it did 2 things. It set different conditions. On that, we think 2 conditions are clearly not met. The park owner was supposed to disclose the proposed rents that's required by state law, and they were supposed to do it by now because a conditional public report has been obtained. Now, I know they're going to argue that it was a final public report from DRA that triggers that, but the conditional public report wasn't envisioned because it's really the legal and functional equivalent in this type of a situation, since the purpose of disclosing those rents is to allow the homeowners to make a choice. And it's not merely just coming out with the rents they're proposing. It's supposed to be based on a legitimate appraisal. Nobody has ever seen the appraisal that the park owner is using to base those rents. You do not have the information to approve the final map. It's just not there. It hasn't been disclosed. There's a compromise offer of $610 there, but it's not even an offer. It says they'll agree to raise the market rent to $610 without even showing you how that $610 was based. There's no evidence that that was not even pulled out of the air, okay? And then it says, however, if we want, we reserve the right to litigate that that's too low. And then we'll take the city to court, and then we'll get a higher rent if we want to do that. And in exchange for that, what we're going to do is we're going to give the first 100 people to buy a space $5,000 discounts on each of their spaces, even though, well, let me backtrack for that. If we look not only at the conditions of your resolution, if we look at the entire thing, you made a half-dozen statements concerning the city's desire and commitment to stand up for these homeowners and to make sure that a sham conversion is not proceeding. You stated that the El Dorado Court of Appeal decision had supported you on that. You stated that the city reserved the right to take whatever legal actions were needed to protect their interest. You then went out and hired an appraiser, Mr. Brayman. Nobody knew where that appraisal was going to come in. It came in, and it came in showing that this conversion is a sham. It showed that their lot prices were astronomically higher, not $5,000 higher, but $25,000 to $45,000 higher. So now what you're saying is, okay, 100 of you will have your rents being 25 to 40, excuse me, not your rents, your lot prices being $25,000 to $45,000 higher than our own appraisal shows or fair market values. In exchange for that, what we're going to give the park owner is we're going to let him to do whatever he wants with the market rents. He could take $610 or he could challenge that, but then we're going to trade away the city's rights for standing up for these homeowners after that. There's a clause in here that says the city will waive their rights to subsequently, after final map approval, to challenge any of the contentions that's either sham rent that doesn't comply with the statute, or a sham conversion, and even to affirmatively help the homeowners. You're even agreeing that you're not going to help the homeowners if the homeowners go out and file a lawsuit. You also promise that you will not adopt any ordinance which would provide a little bit of extra protection to ensure that this is not a sham conversion. If you feel that you're under a legal obligation for the city's liability to have to pass the final map tonight, okay, then you should do that. I disagree, these homeowners disagree, and I would urge you not to, because I believe that you shouldn't pass the final map until the park owner complies with the law and shows you that the market rents are based on a legitimate appraisal. But if you believe that there's too much risk to the city to do that, then I would urge you to just pass the final map and reserve your right to protect the homeowners later. You don't have to make that decision to protect them today, but you shouldn't cut off your right to follow through with the rest of your resolution and get out there and support the homeowners at a future time by passing this ordinance, by living up to the own statements that you put in your resolution. I'm just going to look this over real fast again because, as I said, this was just given to me 5 minutes ago, and it contains these clauses that I haven't even seen before, so obviously I've had to completely deviate to what I was prepared to do. But anyway, the homeowners here appreciate greatly the money, the years that you have spent defending them. But if you do this right now, they're going to think that you're completely caving in, and they're going to be mad. And that doesn't say that they don't appreciate everything that you've done in the past. And they do, and I do, and we understand your situation, but this settlement is a complete cave-in. I guess I only need 7 minutes. Thank you.
Sue, if you'll give your name to the
Sure. It's Sue Lofton. I'm representing the applicant. The first issue I'd like to address is the final map. We have worked with the staff. We've completed all of our conditions. We've executed the security agreements that were required. Everything has been submitted now for some time. To address the specific issue that was brought up with regard to the rents, the tenant impact report, which is a condition of the map, states, at the time each household shall receive the final public report and all documents and financial information, on and on. We list all the documents, and then it goes on to say proposed lease and or written rental agreement, low income application, price, and rental rates. The conditional, we have 3 public reports on this property. The first was the preliminary public report that was issued, I believe, in January. We have received the conditional public report. We received, as of yesterday, the final clearance, which was the clearance on our budget. The only item that we have left is the final map, and as that relates to the recordations and so on to finish. We have made every attempt assiduously to comply with the conditions and make sure that they're there. All of the documentation will be prepared. We did have negotiations today. We did not discover, or at least I didn't until Friday, that the residents wouldn't, or the homeowners wouldn't meet unless we had rent. Our appraisal is not completed, but we did get the number. And it will be completed prior to issuance of the final public report. The rents that came out for market rent for the resident, or for the Brabant, was $570. Ours will come out at $675. We were negotiated down to $610. That's about a 60%, 65% movement on that issue. So the tenant impact report is a condition of the map. It survives the recordation and is applicable to not only this owner, but anyone else who intends to own. With regard to the ordinance that was submitted, we are strongly opposed to that, and I'll run through that just quickly for the record. It places unreasonable restraints on alienation. For example, if Mr. Goldstein gives title to a non-buyer at any point in time, including if he died, then that resident would receive relocation. That's inappropriate not only for the alienation but also for the state law issues. The state law specifically does not allow a veto power by residents in the way that it's written in this, where if you don't have 51%, there is no deal. We worked very hard not only with the staff and the city attorneys to work out a deal, but we also worked with the group that represents the people who want to buy to make sure what was worked out was acceptable to them. In closing, I'd like to urge you to pass the final map and to consider the agreement that took a considerable amount of time to work out, which addresses and has attempted to address the issues so that we can move forward with a conversion we went forward and made concessions on the price issue, and most importantly, what seems to be what was the rent going to be. You know, we've all heard numbers, and we substantially came down to $610. That's divided over 4 years. Lastly, what is a sham conversion? And we've heard a lot of things about that. We submit to you that we have followed all the procedures. We certainly have expended the time and money on appraisals and time and money working with your staff to come up with and meet the conditions that were specifically set forth. We want to be able to proceed with the conversion and hope that you pass the final map tonight, along with the conditions as worked out among the city attorneys, ourselves, and the residents who want to purchase and move forward with this project, keeping in mind that we have protected the non-low-income, non-buyers. Just as a reminder, the low-income residents receive substantial benefits with regard to the preservation of their rents if they are unable to purchase or select not to purchase. With that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Carolyn Miller-Frank.
Good evening. I feel like I've been here all day. In fact, I think I have been here all day. We put in a long, hard day. We worked awfully hard. We had the Homeowners Association and their attorney represented today, tried to negotiate, and that was impossible to do. So we continued working with the city attorney and trying to come to some agreement that was agreeable to both what we would hope would be the city and to those of us who want to buy. As far as the market rent, we feel that that is fair. I have checked rentals in other parks, and it's very close to what other park rentals are. As far as the price accommodations that were addressed, our concerns regarding the price, we feel is fair and just to everyone involved. I know it sounds high, and it is high. Had we been able to do this 3 years ago, we would have saved a lot of money. We do want to thank the city for setting aside $500,000 to accommodate our moderate income residents in assisting them to buy their lot if they so choose. You know, after 11 years of negotiations back and forth, prices continuing to go up in the valley, and will continue to go up in the valley. Right now, the interest rates are down low. I urge the council to please consider this and approve the track map tonight. And let's get on with this conversion before prices escalate even more and really price us out of the ballpark. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Waterman.
Hold on a second, Jim. Can I ask the cooperation of the people here to allow the speaker to be heard? Go ahead, sir.
And I think that, you know, there's obviously a very loud and group of voices here. And these people have been involved in a very emotional process for a lot of years. As you know, this has been going on for 10 or 11 or 12 years. And so obviously there's a lot of emotion. I think as far as appraisals are concerned, it's like legal opinions. You know, we can go out and get 5 of them, and they'll probably all be different. And then we can argue over which one is right forever. I do think that there's a silent majority of people in the park, or maybe it's a silent minority of people, but there is a group of people that would just like to move this forward. And real estate prices continue to go up. Last year they went up in the valley by 21%. I think if you look at the overall picture as someone from the outside, the average coach in the park sells for about $40,000. If you look at buying a lot for $85,000, you then have an investment of about $125,000 total. And I've looked extensively, and I don't think that you can duplicate what we have in that park for that price anywhere in Palm Springs. And so I believe that we have an all-time low in interest rates, a 40 to 50-year low. And there are a group of people that would just like to settle this and move on. I don't think that continued litigation, obviously the litigation over the last several years has gotten us nowhere except from going to a price that maybe you could have bought them 9 or 10 years ago for $30,000 or $40,000 to a price now that's you know, 80 something thousand. And I think if we wait another couple of years, it'll be 120,000. So I do urge that you pass the final map and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Catherine Robinson, are you willing to speak at this time? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address item 8? No? Thank you. Seeing none, we'll close public comments. And when I will turn to item 8, and I'll ask Mr. Reddy for his staff report, please. Mr. Reddy?
Mr. Mayor, I would yield to the city attorney for the staff report on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy.
And I'm going to introduce Bill Weiner, who's here tonight. Bill came out today because we knew this was on the agenda. We felt this was a potential last opportunity to try and work out a reasonable understanding. Bill has spent all day at this with these 3 groups, kind of going back and forth, trying to figure out something that would work. But before he starts, I just do want to clarify. The issue on the agenda tonight is the approval of the subdivision map. And almost all the comments we've heard so far have been about things other than the subdivision map. This negotiation back and forth today our goal was to come up with something that everybody could agree with. And unfortunately, we could not work out something that everybody could agree with. A couple of years ago, we were in this spot. Jeannie and Dana were on the subcommittee, and we sort of got to that point of having negotiated and failed to come up with something everybody would agree on. And we proceeded to do what we thought was the best thing, the most reasonable thing. And it turned out that, again, the parties couldn't get on board with it, and it resulted in 2 years of litigation. And our goal tonight is to try and avoid that. The document that Mr. Constantine referred to is not on the agenda tonight. We're not asking council approval. We're not asking for authorization of that. What staff wanted to do is have a sort of conceptual understanding that we could simply proceed with to try and put an agreement together. That agreement would come back if staff gets to an agreement that staff is happy with. We would come back and put that on an agenda. If the council decided that you did not support that and did not want to enter into that agreement, then there would be no agreement. And all of those elements that are in the agreement you would not be bound by. You're not bound by anything. So Mr. Constantine and the others will have an opportunity to come in maybe a couple meetings from now and tell you that you shouldn't enter into that agreement. But the downside will be that if there is not such an agreement, then, for example, setting the rent at the $610 instead of some other number, the landlord will be able to go to whatever number he wants. But that issue as to whether or not to go forward with that understanding is really not here tonight. That would be something we would bring back to the council at a future point in time for direction whether you want to enter into such an agreement. That being said, I'm sure that Bill, just to give you an understanding, will be able to talk a little bit about some of the issues involved with that, just so we're kind of setting the record straight. But I just want to make it clear that agreement is not on the agenda. We're not asking anybody to approve it. It would be, all of those points would be subject to further discussion, and ultimate would come back on an agenda for the council to decide what you want to do with it. So without more, I'd like to have Bill go through the discussions today and what our recommendation is on the tract map and why.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. I want to break my discussion into two parts, and that is to talk with you about what is on the agenda tonight, and then to talk with you about this document that is a rough outline of an agreement in concept. What is on for approval tonight is the final tract map, and the law simply says that if the holder of a tentative tract map satisfies all the conditions of the map, the legislative body shall approve the same. The legal issue for discussion is that the map does require, as a condition of approval, the disclosure of market rate rents. The issue is the timing of that disclosure. I've carefully considered and have heard from both sides, both Mr. Constantine and Mr. Colbert's office of O'Melveny and Myers, who have exchanged correspondence with me, and I've shared that correspondence with both sides. The two positions have been appropriately stated tonight. Mr. Constantine's argument is that the fair market rents should be disclosed as a condition of approval of the map, meaning on or before tonight. The opposing position is that it has to be disclosed under the terms of the tenant impact report, which is on or before the final the issuance of the final report by the DRE. We've carefully looked at that position. We are of the legal opinion that the legislative body is under a legal obligation to approve the final map tonight. And it is our recommendation that you approve that map. We do not believe that we could be successful in convincing a court that failure to disclose the rents tonight would constitute a violation of the map. And so staff's legal counsel's recommendation to you tonight is to approve the map. Shifting to what is not on the agenda, but what is an obvious hot topic of discussion tonight is the outline of a settlement which is subject to being prepared in a written definitive agreement between the parties. Obviously, if you elect to approve the final map tonight, you will be satisfying one of the conditions of this potential dispositive settlement agreement between the city, the park owner, the conversion committee, but not the homeowners association. And let me just briefly review with you those terms and how we got to those terms. Obviously, the city was concerned about the PGP appraisal. We engaged the Brabant appraisal. It is true that the Brabant appraisal comes back with substantially different values, between 23 and 33% in differences. From a legal perspective, the burden that the city would face if it were to try to compel imposition of these sales values, meaning the Brabant sales values, upon this conversion, is that we would face the legal burden of having to prove that no reasonable appraiser could have reached the values that are reflected in the applicant's report. There is no legal definition of what constitutes a sham conversion. We would be making new law, as we have been for lo these many years, sometimes in our favor and sometimes not in our favor. In our view, a negotiated resolution is a far better preference to a litigated resolution because of the existing and potential exposures. We proposed to the sides a number of settlement methodologies, none of which we could get three-party concurrence upon. The proposal that is being offered is a $5,000 discount for the first 100 purchasers who close escrow before the end of the year. Is it what we wanted? No. Is it better than no discount? Yes. It is true, as Mr. Constantine has said, we have not seen the PGP or the applicant's appraised fair market values, but they have represented to us that on an average, the fair market rental values their appraisal will come out with is $575. The Brabant appraisal was the applicant's appraiser is going to come up with fair market rental values of, on an average, $675. The city's appraiser came up with a value of $575. We've got a $100 gap between us. We were successful in persuading the applicant to make a substantial discount. That discount, of course, is not a one-time discount. It works for 4 years, but it is true that after 4 years, rents will float for non-low-income residents to whatever the market rate will bear, as demonstrated by an appraisal establishing market rate rents. Is it the ideal concession that we wanted? Is it better than no? No, it is not. Is it better than no concession at all? Yes, it is. The issue about litigating over those fair market values, while I understand that Mr. Constantine could read that phrase in concept the way he did, my understanding of the intent of the parties is that neither the city nor the applicant would initiate litigation to determine fair market rental values, but if some third party were to challenge this conversion, and in the course of that challenge, the applicant were successful in persuading a court that the fair market values were higher than $610, the applicant would have the option to charge the higher rate. It is my understanding that that would only apply to third-party litigation. The city would agree not to litigate over what was a fair market rent, and so would the applicant. This is to try to incentivize all parties not to litigate. You have certainty on what the rents are if this agreement gets finalized in a form that's acceptable to the council. The agency would contribute $500,000 from its housing set-aside funds for what are commonly referred to in the industry as second silence. This would, we think, average about $12,000 a household. This could hopefully assist as many as 50 coach owners to engage in a purchase. Is it all that we would like to do? No. Is it more than nothing? Yes, it is. We would be agreeing in the course of the process not to adopt the ordinance requiring a bona fide conversion. There is much debate back and forth about the legality of that ordinance, number one, and whether it could be applied to this conversion, number two. In return for some concessions, we're prepared, assuming we can bring that language back to you in a form that's acceptable to the city attorney, to recommend that you not do that you not adopt such an ordinance that would apply to this conversion. We would also agree that if there is no litigation from a third party challenging this conversion within a year of the date of the settlement agreement, the pending hardship rent increase litigation would be dismissed. In return for that, the city would waive its right to challenge the conversion, file friendly lawsuits. We would obviously obey and comply with any subpoenas that would be served on us or any written discovery that could be propounded on us. The intent of this provision was that not only would the city not affirmatively file a lawsuit, but if some third party were to file a lawsuit, the city would not join in a friendly cross-complaint. Are these the ideal conditions we had hoped to negotiate? They are not. Are they better than the alternative, which potentially would be the city approving this map with no concessions? They are better than that. But as the city attorney correctly pointed out, these are agreements in concept, subject to documentation and potential further negotiation. If the language of the final agreement is not acceptable to both sides, to use the vernacular of the day, all bets are off. The city would still have reserved all of its legal rights and options. But we believe that this is some assistance that we have endeavored to negotiate, which will benefit all of the residents in the mobile home park. Was it everything we'd hoped to get? Not by a long shot. Is it better than nothing? We believe it is. But at the end of the day, we are recommending that you take action to approve the final map tonight because, in our judgment, the applicant has satisfied all the conditions of the tentative tract map. And with that, we'll be pleased to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Winder.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Alshire.
Just in closing, I'd like to say I very much appreciated Mr. Constantine pointing out on behalf of the residents that they understand that this city has gone to bat for them in the past and has gone the final mile to try and battle with the park owner to get a fair deal for the residents. I was glad he noted that, and I wanted to emphasize, I believe in the last 10 years, we have probably spent over $500,000 of general fund money in litigating various issues concerning the park. So I think it absolutely is true that we have gone to bat for the residents. I think that past history demonstrates that we are not afraid of litigation. We have been willing to take that on. We have been very sympathetic with the residents and their situation, and we have been willing to battle for that result. However, we are sitting here today in a situation where this city in the last few months has been dealing with trying to balance a $4 million budget deficit. The question is whether going out and spending more hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation is the right solution. And I think in thinking that through, those factors certainly weigh on the recommendation that we're making. We are, in good conscience, can only recommend a course of action which we have a fairly strong belief that we will be successful in. And the other aspect of that is that one of the things we are suggesting in this arrangement is that the city, through its housing fund, actually put up $500,000 to provide subsidies to help park owners buy these units. So we're actually talking about and willing to recommend that the city contribute money to helping to cause the conversion to occur and residents to be able to occupy these units. So You know, it's often said that the mark of a fair compromise is that neither side is happy with the compromise, and evidently we're close to achieving that. But the last point is that all those issues about whether that's a good deal or a bad deal, we will bring back. We will negotiate to a very detailed, specific agreement. We will bring that back to you at another point in time. If you don't like that deal, you want to massage it, change it, etc., we will be able to deal with that. The issue tonight is simply the issue of whether the conditions of the tentative map have been met, and we can go ahead and approve the final subdivision map. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alshire. Council. Questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Oden.
I have a couple of questions. What is a sham conversion?
I don't know the answer to that question. I have done some investigation. Mr. Constantine has shared with me his legal views about the sham conversion, but I suspect that at the end of the day, as I indicated to you in my staff report, a sham conversion would be the offering of properties for sale at a price that no reasonable appraiser would conclude represents a fair market value for that space. And in that case, a court could reach a conclusion that the real purpose of the application is not to convert the park to resident ownership, but to run away from municipal rent control.
At this point, through the courts, has anyone proven a sham conversion?
No. Again, the concept appeared in the lexicon of judicial precedents in the El Dorado opinion for the first time. There are analogous concepts out there in the area of conversion of apartments to condominium ownership, where municipalities pass ordinances requiring permission to do that on the grounds that such a conversion is a charade. I think in this context, the concept of charade and sham would be largely analogous. But in the concept of what is a fair price to pay for these properties, it is my opinion that the burden that we would bear would be as I have stated it to you. And I should add that that Mr. Constantine is of the legal opinion that that can be demonstrated. I, with due respect, don't share his optimism.
On the appraisals, what was the difference between the Brabant and the other appraisal?
In general, and there are some cases where they differ by as little as 4%, but in general, the range is between 23 and 33%, if memory serves me right.
So, by approving the tract map, what are we doing?
By approving the tract map, you are saying that the conditions of the tentative tract map have been satisfied and a final map is being issued. That, in a vacuum, is all you're doing tonight. You're not agreeing that this is approving the final map does not constitute admission that this is not a sham conversion. But having said that, the consequence of approving the final map is that it permits the Department of Real Estate to issue its final report, and it moves the process further towards conversion. And the Homeowners Association's legal counsel's position is that if you approve the final map, you need to adopt another regulatory system which will require that the conversion be demonstrated to be bona fide in order to assert any regulatory authority over that process. But literally speaking tonight, approval of this final map is not an acknowledgement that the PGP appraisal is fair, reasonable, or not a sham. It simply says the conditions of approval, the conditions of the tentative map have been satisfied and the final map is approved.
Now, what is this final report that comes out? The is it tenant impact report?
No, the tenant impact report is actually a part of the tentative tract map. It is required by 66427.5 of the Government Code. The final map is just a reflection that all of the administrative conditions to conversion at the municipal level have now been satisfied, and jurisdiction over the process now shifts to the State Department of Real Estate. Final jurisdiction.
What is this, MPROP, did you say?
MPROP, boy, now...
And what role do they play in this?
Now I'm about to exhaust my limited knowledge. MPROP, as I understand it, and if JR's here, maybe he can help me with it, is a financing mechanism that provides funding sources for low or very low income households in the form of subsidies which would assist them in the purchase of their property. And that process is still potentially available. That is why the $500,000 that we will recommend at some point that the agency become involved with be targeted towards moderate income households, because that seems to be the majority of the households, and there is no other state mechanism out there available to provide them with assistance in making purchases. So the very low income property owners are protected under this process in two ways. Even under Subdivision Map Act rent control, the very low income households will actually likely pay no more or even potentially somewhat less than they pay under Palm Springs rent control, because the State Map Act rent control sets those rates at a very strict level, and they do not gradually escalate as do the rates for non-low income properties. So they are protected by the Subdivision Map Act, and they potentially have a funding source to assist them in purchasing their spaces through a successful MPROP application, neither of which protections are available for moderate or upper income property coach owners. To assist the middle-income coach owners, we're proposing agency assistance.
Can you explain for me, what is the relationship between the appraisal, the rental?
The Government Code 66427.5 says that the fair market rental value shall be established by an appraisal conducted according to national appraisal standards, and I'm now paraphrasing what the statute reads. So an appraisal must be prepared consistent with the standards in state law that will establish the 4-year increments within which rents will escalate to market rates. That clearly is a requirement that has to be done. The issue in dispute between the parties is, when is that requirement? The argument of the applicant and the condition of the tenant impact report is that the disclosure has to be made before a final offer of sale is made.
Okay, but they've not shared that information at this point.
They have given us what they represented to us to be the conclusion that will be reached by their appraiser, who apparently is in the process of reducing those conclusions to a writing, and their average fair market rental value, according to their appraiser as represented to us, will be $675 per month. The Brabant appraisal established a value of $575 a month.
So the rental assessment is $100 a month apart.
And they've agreed to...
And there's a 23 to 33% discrepancy in terms of the appraised value of the property.
Sales value.
Sales value.
Yes.
Okay.
And the compromise on the two issues are, with respect to purchase price, a discount of $5,000 for the first 100 purchasers. With respect to rents, a discount from $675 to $610, or an increase from $575 to $610, applicable to all spaces, all non-low income spaces.
Do we know what those spaces equate to per acre per sale in relationship to the price of property in the city of Palm Springs?
I do not. I do not. I'm sure it could be calculated, and if that becomes important to you as you're considering the final written settlement agreement at a future date, we will calculate that for you based on that, based on those assumptions or based on those premises.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roden. Additional council questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mills.
Mr. Weiner, is it true that at final map, which is where we are now in this project, that that no new conditions can be added?
That's true. That is the general rule of law.
So,
yes.
so basically, what was done at the tentative map phase is what has to follow through at this
Right.
point.
And all that has to be done is that the applicant must demonstrate compliance with those conditions and none other.
And in your opinion, he has done that?
In our opinion, we are obligated to approve this final map, yes.
And if it's not done this evening?
If it's not done, there are potential adverse consequences to the city.
Thank you.
I'm not prepared to concede what those consequences are.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Spurgeon.
I have no questions. I've been here 11 years and 2 months now with El Dorado, and I certainly don't feel like tonight's vote is an abandonment. I believe that we have been there for you and have continued and will continue. But we don't just represent you. We represent everyone in the city of Palm Springs, and I believe that that's my obligation to do what is being advised by legal. So with that, I'll move the resolution.
Motion by Mr. Spurgeon to move the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mills. Any additional comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would agree. I think we certainly have been very supportive of El Dorado and tried to work with this situation. And when the council came up, they made the comment that it's been a considerable amount of time. And I would agree. But as I listen to this plan, and I know that that's not what we're taking an action on tonight, but it will be based upon tonight's action. I have to go back to what we said at our last meeting, and that is whether or not it is a sham. I think when we look at the discrepancy in the appraisals, it's a sham. I think when we look at the discrepancy in the price of the rentals, it's a sham. Whether or not we can effectively fight this is another issue, but it's a sham. I I mean, I've looked at this and I've thought about the many years, and someone was saying earlier, well, if we had done this, there's so many things that could have been done years ago. And in a cooperative effort, and certainly the way we received this information with the appraisal, and even down to this with the last minute and still not, just out of good faith, providing the information. You know, I mean, it would just clear the air. But this has not happened in all the years that I've been on council in dealing with this property owner. And it's wrong. So I will not be supporting it.
Well, I'll tell you, through the almost 10 years of service and half as many, again, campaigns and visits to El Dorado, I think some of the earliest discussions had with owners, I think even as far back as '92 in dealing with this issue, was, can't we get this to be ownership? Can't we get a conversion? In many ways, the desire of so many residents I have talked to over the past decade was, can't we just own it and control our own fate? And we had very little ability in the early years to do this. It required, obviously, the cooperation of all parties to even attempt to do it. We looked at every possible way that we had available to us. And cities do have a number of tools in our arsenal that facilitate change and improvement and protection. And I will suggest to you that in the almost 10 years of service, and I've been up here with Jeannie all those years, we have pulled out virtually every tool I can think of to try to find a way to guard, protect, save, fight for El Dorado. And I would suggest to you, after 10 years, with the intent, at least from a decade ago, of trying to find a way to get ownership, this was the path that we actually all went down. I don't suggest to you that anybody controlled this outcome. This is, as said earlier, it's sort of a compromise rule, that the three parties are trying to find a way to get as close to what they all want as possible. We are faced with the responsibility as your civic leaders of looking at the facts before us and the legal ramifications of actions we take to find out what is in the best interest of the entire city, and of course all of you at El Dorado. And as much as we have tried to get you somewhere different than where you ended up tonight, I don't know what tool we have left. We have met extensively, repeatedly with legal counsel. And I know legal counsel has met with many of the residents on both sides, have met with obviously the owner and their representatives, trying to find out if there was a way to do it. Our legal firm exhausted, from my thinking, and I think the council would concur, their research in trying to find out if there's any case laws, any opportunity, there are things going on as a legislation, anything. We talked about MPROP as an opportunity to help, obviously, with the low and moderate income. We are not legally bound to assist with the silent second, but we felt compelled to throw at least $500,000 towards the reduction of cost to, again, soften whatever this outcome might be. The owner has offered a $5,000 incentive for those. And you can say that that's not enough, but the reality is after a decade of trying to find resolution, I can suggest to you at this point, I don't think we know what else to do that is legally capable of happening. I mean, in the legal world, we have limitations. And in the financial world, we have other limitations. And sometimes after exhaustive efforts, the results are not as fruitful as we like. But I am looking at what's before us tonight, and it's a simple fact of looking at a tentative track map, if it is ready for, in fact, council approval, as a final map. And with it comes other actions, as Mr. Oden indicated. The implications are not just a simple action. But we have met almost weekly on this issue. We are late in getting here at times because we're in closed session. Mr. Alshire rattled off the closed session report, and he stated we did not discuss it, we did not discuss it, we did not discuss it. We did discuss this because this was the highest priority on the council's agenda. We dedicated the necessary time to, again, once again this week, attend to this, devote whatever time we felt was necessary, and we held off on it. In fact, we're going to close tonight's meeting with probably setting up a special closed session, do some catch-up work on other issues, because we attended to this and other issues that we deem would be higher priorities. Please realize the council you're looking at here has been working for you for as long as I've been on council, and we offer you this as sort of the last step, and we'll see where it goes. Any further comments? Not, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
No.
Ms. Relish Bergen?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye, 3-1. Track map is approved. Let's take a slight recess to allow the chamber to empty, and we'll return back to our session. Thank you. We'll call the meeting back to order. We'll return back to our agenda. Before we go forward, I want to get clarification from the city attorney. On item A, it was noticed early by Madam Clerk that A would be withdrawn. This is a hearing that has been noticed. I need clarification. Do we need to open the hearing? And then how do you want to handle that? Give us some instruction, please.
No, you do not need to open it. The applicant has asked to withdraw the item, and what we can do is renotice it if it is ready to go forward in the future.
Do we need to ask if anyone here is for the hearing or not?
You could as a courtesy, but I think I recognize everybody in the room.
You're a pretty popular guy, David. I
Yeah.
guess you know them all. That's great. Then with that, we will not have the Joint Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. So we'll then adjourn the City Council and convene simply as this Community Redevelopment Agency. On this one, members of the agency, we'll turn to item B, which is again a public hearing dealing with the 2003-2004 fiscal year budget for the CRA. Mr. Reddy, if you'll give your executive report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I would like Mr. Kennard to give the some facts on the CRA budget, but when we get to the capital portion, myself, John Raymond, and Jerry Ogburn would like to discuss several of the projects, in particular a couple in the downtown area that we would like to give you some greater detail on about those programs. Thank you. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Mr. Chairman and members of the agency, the action before you is a resolution to adopt the fiscal 2003-04 budget for the redevelopment agency. The total amount of the budget, the capital and administration, is $2,801,891, and the debt service is $6,847,213. The major changes in the budget, or new things that we've had in there from the prior years, outside of the capital, and as Mr. Reddy said, John Raymond will be discussing those. We've had a major increase in the ERAF payment. That's the Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund. It's essentially a transfer from the city to the state via the schools. But we had to pay in the current fiscal year about $130,000. Our estimate for next year between the two project areas is $400,000. It could be worse than that. We're basing our estimate on the information that we have from the governor's May revision. The other major thing in there is the increase in the contribution to the Convention Center debt service. This was something that we talked about when we were discussing the city's budget, increasing the contribution from the redevelopment agency from $150,000 per year to $300,000 per year, and that's justified by some of the documentation of the bond issue, and in fact was recommended by our auditors. Those are the two major changes or areas of change in the CRA's budget, and I'd ask Mr. Raymond to go through the capital with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennard. Mr. Raymond.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I just lost that page. There we go. The agents on the capital project side, the agency has three funds. There's one fund for merged area number one for merged area number two, and the third for low and moderate income housing. In the merged area number one, we're proposing $100,000. For the first phase, we're going to do it as a 2-year project to connect the sewer, connect the new visitor center to the sewer. The closest sewer line is 1,000 feet away, and we would run the sewer line up Palm Canyon and connect that, and that would become part of the visitor center project. And that's one of the things that's in the draft of the lease that we have with the Nichols Family Trust. There's a mention of that we anticipate doing that, and there may be some consideration. And ultimately, if we were to buy the land around the visitor center, there might be some consideration for what we spend on sewer because they would benefit from that project. We're proposing some street improvements in the industrial area, the Desert Highland Gateway project area, $65,000 there's a couple of industrial projects coming in there. The Jerry can talk in more detail about this, an expansion of the lighting program, the decorative lighting program in the uptown area. We appropriated $104,500 this year. This $107,000 would allow us to complete the project, and if you have any questions on that, Jerry can answer those.
And actually, JR, if I could interrupt, on this one, members of the agency, what we would also like to do is, with the $60,000, would be in essence a micro loan program for those uptown businesses, in essence, to so they get their lights now and pay us back, so they actually could have the light fixtures. Because last year you'd committed to do the infrastructure on the lights. With the First Friday and the other things starting to happen there, that seemed to be the largest impediment, was the lights in the uptown and Heritage District. So this would be fulfilling that ability for them to actually, hopefully, continue that environment that they could continue to grow. So this, I think, is a very major and positive step towards assisting them in that endeavor. Thank you.
Mr. Reddy, the $60,000 represents how many light fixtures? What's the unit
I
cost?
would yield to Jerry for those facts. Jerry?
36.
36 gets, it's $60,000?
It's like $1,600 each, $1,700 each.
Thank you.
So that's an outlay that we're putting the money out, and then we would seek to recover that over the $60,000 over 5 years.
This would be a continuation from Francis Stevens northbound, so that it's a contiguous line of lighting?
Yes, sir. That's, Mr. Mayor, that would be from Granville Belmonte north to Villalobos to encompass what we know as the Heritage District. Yes.
Would it go as far as Villalobos? Would it make it
yes,
that far?
a few would. A few
Excellent.
Would. Yeah, so 36.
And-
Actually, we're filling in. We have quite a few fixtures up, all they're ready, and this would finish that area off, completed.
Very good, thank you.
We have another street and signal relocation project proposed for the Sunny Dunes and South Palm Canyon area, $73,000. And then this is another of Jerry's projects. We're looking to repowder coat all the downtown lights. They've been up for 10 years now. They're starting to show the effects of age and the stickers that are put on them and the ice cream that gets spilled on them and that sort of thing. Even if it gets cleaned off over time, it kind of wears the finish off. So we're looking at
What are you going to do with the light?
what are we going to do?
Yeah, on South Palm Canyon and Sunny Dunes. How are you going to alter that?
The signal relocation, it just needs to be moved back as part of the KFC, excuse me, the KFC project down there. They have a requirement to relocate the signal. They're going to be tearing down the KFC, the Sizzler building, the cleaners, and sort of the other building, and building a single building. And there's a kind of, to replace 3 or 4 buildings with one building, it's kind of an inordinate amount of infrastructure that they have to put in. So I think they have to move the traffic signal back.
Is there road widening going on also?
I think there's a little bit of widening that goes in.
Because we just put that median in when we,
The median's north of Sunny
Right, on the
Dunes,
other side.
in front of Starbucks, so this would be
south of that.
south of Sunny Dunes, and it would go down to the wash, and then when Star Canyon gets built, the rest of it will continue. And so this is sort of a prelude to what you're going to see when Star Canyon goes in there.
Good.
So, and then the powder coating, it says 60,000. We've got 55,000. We'll find the other 5 to do the first phase this year, and then that'll be a 3-year project. We were trimming in the last minute. So, and then in merge area number 2, we've got a project that we've are proposing to do essentially a continuation of the street improvements that we did on Arenas Road between Indian and Encilia on the north side of Arenas in cooperation with the Marquee Villas project that's coming through. And there's some terms of an agreement that we'll talk to you at the point where we bring that agreement back to talk to you about that, but we have to go ahead and budget the number on there.
On that particular project there, is there anything being done with the property owner on the south side of the street?
We are working very hard to get a new property owner on the south side of the street. So we'd like to really see that property turn over. We've had a number of good housing developers in here. We've sent them down to look at it. We've had the guy, if you recall last year, we had that problem with the Indian lease and HUD and all that, and that kind of held up the financing of that particular owner, although he's still interested in the project. So one of my goals in housing this year is to get that property sold and to get it start to be rehabbed, because it's very significant with all the stuff that's happening in that corridor and in that area to get that property really cleaned up. And then we have a small amount, we're calling it post office relocation. You know, we've talked to the tribe about helping them on that. We would anticipate that the tribe would cover all of the expenses related to the relocation, but there's some things that we have in place right now that we're moving very quickly on, and we would probably either have to amend the casino DDA or create a new agreement with the tribe. And there's things that we're going to have to do in the next couple of months to get things moving for that, and then we would seek to recover that as part of the agreement with the tribe. But we had to go ahead and budget for it now, because it's stuff that needs to happen in the next 60 days.
I would only suggest that while in the merge area too, the discussion, although not referenced here in any way, shape, or form, with the massive work being done at the convention center, there have been some discussions about trying to get physical links from the new west entry back into downtown. There's obviously no allocation here. I don't doubt that these are all high priorities, but in trying to balance that effort on the convention center, I wonder if in fact the action we take tonight, does this commit us in this fashion, or is it just an allocation that can be amended later on? Are developers relying on action tonight to then see that they're going to go forward with their arenas project? Because if you had $200,000 to add to some of the physical links, the pedestrian links and otherwise, in the efforts of the convention center, I think you might be able to get that connection back into the downtown.
Well, one of the things...
Bring it up as a question.
One of the things you could do is just decide you roll it all into unscheduled capital projects. The $200,000, we've got 75 in there as unscheduled, and then make the decision at the point we come to you with the project and say, do you want to do this project or not? Yeah, I want to do the project. Okay, take it back out and put it on that project. Or, to the mayor's point, no, we'd rather see it spent on Andreas and the sort of linkages in that area. And so go ahead and come up with a project there.
I only suggest that we reserve the opportunity to accept or reject the funding on the convention center, that it would just make a more complete project. As we're dealing with trying to close some of the demands of the convention center, we keep finding things we wish we could do and always wish we could do more on, and we're, again, changing a lot of aspects of the convention center around downtown. This $300,000 or $275,000 can go a long way towards that goal. So if it's okay to just put it in the unallocated, unscheduled, you know, if it comes up, obviously we'll know pretty soon at the convention center whether we need it or don't need it. And if not, we can put it back in and bring it back for other opportunities.
Well, actually, in the last 2 years...
I'm just trying to avoid pre-commitment.
The last 2 years in our merged areas, we've come to you just with unscheduled capital projects and said 400 in this one and 500 in this one. This is the first year in 3 years that we've come to you with actually, you know, specific projects saying we think it's this and that. And so if you'd prefer, like on the merged area 2, to do that, you know, we could do that. We just amend it and make it all unscheduled capital projects, and then just draw it for the projects that you as the agency decide are more important. Ready to go to housing?
Yeah, let's go to Lomar.
Okay. The Sunset Hacienda, which is the expansion of Coyote Run, $250,000. That's the second year of the. If you remember, we committed money over a 3-year period in this fiscal year, and then this would be $250 in the next year, and then I believe it's $200 in the year following. We had a request from Vista Serena Co-op, which is on Vista Chino. They are actually, believe it or not hooked up to the sewer, and they are on septic. And they have and this is actually would pay the connect fee to hook that project up to sewer. They would actually pay to hook it up. And I don't know how that happened.
How recent a project is that?
It was 95, 96, something like that. So we actually got a request from the property owner that said, guess what? And we have to hook it up. And it's a $125,000 fee. So,
Is that reimbursed back to us in some fashion, or is it just,
well, probably not. It's a HUD 202 project is pretty thin in the cash flow. So, and it's already 100% affordable. It's a very low-income senior project.
okay?
And then this is the 300,000 for Desert Highland infill that we've been talking about for several months, and this is a budget allocation for that.
Are those for single family or any housing opportunity?
That's actually for a single-family infill project, single family.
Thank you.
And then the unscheduled capital projects, it sounds like we scheduled part of that tonight, but we'll leave it as unscheduled, and yeah, so, but we'll come back to you at some point and talk. There's still a number of, we still have money in fund balance. There still are a number of requests out there for funding assistance, and we may end up amending the budget very shortly after we adopt it, if you decide to go forward on any of the other projects.
Can I get a clarification on moving monies between merged areas? Can we freely move money from 2 to 1 and 1 to 2? Are there limitations? Does it only flow one way?
You can move money from 1 to 2. I mean, you have to make the finding that it benefits Project Area 1 anyway. Moving money from Project Area 2, or lending money or spending money out of 2 in 1, you would have to go and get
Tribal
that, go to the tribe
Right.
and get them to okay that. On the post office relocation, potentially, that might be a situation where you're spending their money or spending Project Area 2 money in Project Area 1, but it's really on their behalf, and I'm sure they would assent to that. So
Okay.
that concludes the capital projects. If you want to know more about powder coating, Jerry's here.
Okay. All right. Other council questions or comments? Again, I want to get an idea what the council's thought is on the merged area 2 about holding off on the commitment until we at least get through the convention center analysis to see if that $200,000 can assist us in that goal. That makes sense? I'm not saying that the Arenas project is not a good project. I've seen it. I think the work that Mr. Odom and I did on the task force indicated it was a priority. Although when we did parking analysis, we moved money to other areas of higher priority. Not saying we can't do this. I'm just making sure that the convention center get our full attention when given the chance. Other comments on that?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills?
I would be in favor of that. We're going to know the answer pretty quickly. So leaving it unscheduled for now, I would be in favor of that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Odom?
Yes, we have talked about this project for quite a while, but it's still in the same merged area, and if that's what we need to do, then I think it'd be fine.
All right, then let's represent that the merged area 2 would have $25,000 for the post office, and then the remaining $275 and just unscheduled until we can get at least through the convention center analysis. I appreciate the council's consideration. Additional comments or questions on this report?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills?
I have a question, Mr. Ogburn, on the lighting program.
Yes, sir. I'm going to refer to a page.
On 5 of 5.
Thank you.
You're ahead of me, so I don't have a copy.
You can answer this question without having a piece of paper.
Okay.
The loan program to the merchants that Mr. Reddy mentioned, are those programs allow them to get lights now? Is that essentially what we're talking about?
Yeah, we haven't worked out the final details of that, but what we've done before is essentially allowed people to pay for them over a 3 to 5 year period. So it's like a monthly, and they pay monthly in a lot of cases where it's a small business. So it may become a payment of $40, $50 a month. It's something they can absorb. It is an administrative load to do it, but it has been successfully. A lot of the lights that were done in downtown, frankly, were done that way, paid overtime.
Is the agreement made with the tenant or the property owner?
Whoever's going to pay the bill. We've had a mixture of both, and basically it's a reimbursement type agreement. The city owns the fixture, but they will be reimbursed. And in the case that somebody doesn't complete their payment, we pull the fixture.
And we've done that before.
We have done that.
Yeah.
Got a pretty good track record, got pretty good payment, and when
Yes.
not, we take action.
I think we have 130-some fixtures in downtown, and there were probably 2 that were problems.
Great.
Not bad, yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the Community Redevelopment Agency on their fiscal 2003-2004 budget, please do so at this time. You'll come down, give your name to the city clerk. We'll allocate 5 minutes on a public hearing. Good evening and welcome, sir.
Hello, my name is Pastor Holland, and I've been here several times and still concerned about the Desert Highland Gateway area. Here's the budget and moving funds from project area to project 1 to project 2, but I'm still concerned about the real issue, which is people. How things are happening and we're not putting the proper money where it needs to be to help people. In the Desert Island Gateway area, I did make a proposal for making a senior citizen home with a property that's being tore down, and that will have a great impact on the community. As I begin to look at the situation, and it's a very sensitive situation to me, that's why I'm here all the time, because what's happening is we got to start investing a little bit in people instead of things that surround them. I've seen that progress being made throughout the area in Palm Springs, but I don't see any progress in the Desert Highland area as far as the people are concerned. I also see people losing their homes. I see things that's being allowed in that area that's not allowed anywhere else. And I know as things begin to happen and growth begin to come around us, I'm not against growth, but I am against segregation. I am against, not dealing with the issue of helping people. And my main people that I'm trying to help is the senior citizens, but because they're victims, and basically they don't have anything in that area for the seniors. And then the young people are victims, the young kids, they're victims when they are allowed to see the same thing happen over and over again, and there's no progress. I want to see some progress. That's why I'm here. I'm speaking out of love for that area. I'm speaking out of love for the city of Palm Springs because I grew up here. And I think we're making fatal mistakes when we just invest in things other than people, things that's going to help people become better off. When I walk down and I see like the project that was supposed to go forth on San Rafael and Indian Avenue is still sitting there vacant. People are homeless. There's nothing happening. And so until we begin to funnel some of the money into the area where it's needed, well, then we're going to always have that problem. And I'm not saying that Desert Highland Gateway area is the only area that has a drug problem, but I am saying that it's the only area that has a drug problem to the potential of where people can come and sell drugs with no fear, and outsiders can come in, and as you begin to make amendments to the general city plan, you're taking away from things that could happen in the neighborhood. There was amendment to the general city plans, which Tramview Road was supposed to go through. There was a school that was supposed to be in the area, which was elementary school, and then there was a junior high. Okay, and now that school is being taken out of the neighborhood and being put up on Palm Canyon. That would have been a great thing for the community to have a school in there. And I don't think that at the risk of the kids and at the risk of growth, we should be limited to the area that we in, and nothing coming out there that's positive. Okay, I know we're going to do a couple of houses, but it's too much at risk. Just a couple of houses is not enough. Okay, until we can realize that there's a need to change the community around and do something positive there that will make a positive impact on the community, we're going to miss out on a whole lot of opportunity, and the problem is just going to go worse instead of getting better. I still offer my help. I'm ready to invest in that project at 400 Avenida Circa.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the agency on their fiscal 2003-2004 budget? Very good. Seeing no one else, we'll close the public hearing. I would like to address back into the record that in this year's allocation under the low mod housing, Desert Highland has received an allocation of $300,000 for infill, and there is still an available $500,000 plus of unscheduled capital projects. So that
Definitely unscheduled.
There are definitely opportunities. Definitely opportunities. So,
Mr. Mayor, if we could have Mr. Raymond just say a word about what that infill project is.
Mr. Chairman, the infill project, as we propose, as you may recall, the agency owns about a half dozen, or I think 7 single-family lots up in the area, and there are other nonprofit housing developers that own a few more. What we're looking at is a program. We did an RFP back in November, and we've been working on the agreements with 2 housing developers. One is a small builder, and the other is Century Homes, who's the proponents of the Mountain Gate project. To actually, we would actually contribute the lots, and then probably a subsidy that would float, according to the need of the buyer, and for the developers to go ahead and build new single-family homes in the Desert Highland area. The lots that we own, there's a couple of them clustered in the same area, but then there's several that are located throughout the neighborhood too. Part of the money that we've scheduled is for that subsidy, probably mainly in the area of building fees and that sort of thing. And again, that benefit flows not to the developer but to the home buyer. And part of it is for us to acquire new lots as they become available in the neighborhood, either through tax sale, and we had looked at a tax sale lot a couple of months ago, and then other lots that come up, and then just sort of add those back in the program, and then just continue to build new lots. Our goal, it's a relatively modest goal, but for this year, is to get those 6 lots built out, but really what we hope to do is to get somewhere between 12 and 15 homes built this year, this fiscal year, and then just have that program sort of take on a life of its own. There are builders out there now that are acquiring property, acquiring lots, and acquiring dilapidated houses and fixing them up, and actually, working to sell them out in the market without any assistance from the agency. And this is an attempt to prime the pump even further. With the Mountain Gate project, and with the interest in single-family development on the other side of Indian and to the south of this area and even to the north of this area, we feel that it's really time to put a push on single-family development in the neighborhood, because this is the time. We think that the market has arrived to Desert Highland, and we're just trying to give it a little bit of a push in the door and to get market rate developers to be building not just 1 and 2 houses, but tracts of 6 and 12 and 15 houses.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Council, other questions, comments, or what's your pleasure?
Mr. Raymond, please don't sit down yet. I've got one question for you. In the project Visitor Center sewer connection in Emergency Area 1, on that sewer connection for the 1,000 feet, did I understand you to allude to the fact that there would be a reimbursement plan for that 1,000 feet as properties would develop along that 1,000-foot?
It's not a reimbursement plan. We're hoping that what we have proposed and discussed with the property owner is that there would be some credit because the owner of the property we're acquiring the parking lot and the other area around is also the primary benefited owner of the sewer line coming up Palm Canyon. And so we have not formalized anything, we've not finalized anything, but we're hoping that would, and it wouldn't assist the agency because it's not the agency that would potentially down the road, if we sought to, buy the land that we're going to build the parking lot for the visitor center, would be the city, but it would benefit the city, could benefit the city.
Does that sewer line currently stop at Yorba there,
It stops at,
where the current visitor center is?
it's like Cardio or, I forget the name of the
Right,
street.
that's,
but
yeah, that's the same place.
yeah. It's,
Which way is this, give me an idea where this line runs? From the visitor center, which direction does it head to?
we go straight down Palm Canyon
Okay,
and
so-
sort of, I think it doglegs a little bit to the west.
That's Yorba,
Yeah, and then,
Dio to Yorba to Palm Canyon.
but it's,
So you're basically connecting the old to the new visitor center? Is
Yeah.
that- That's where
Yeah,
the line
yeah,
stops?
essentially,
exactly what
In front of the Shell station?
it stops on it's on the west side of Palm Canyon. Comes up the back street, whatever that street is, it comes up, that's just behind Palm Canyon, comes up there, and it's a really big pipe. I mean, it was intended as part of the, master plan of sewers to serve that whole area, but the line itself was never run, up Palm Canyon. So for 38 years, the Albert Frey gas station has been on a septic, and we're going to put a new septic in as part of this new bathroom building, but ultimately, we think that with the usage, we're just going to be a lot happier with it connected to sewer, plus with all the development that is anticipated around it. You really potentially open up a lot of development with the sewer line there.
With the new septic that we're putting in, right? We're putting in a new septic at the visitor center. Are we going to put in a dry sewer up to the property line now? And if we aren't, we should.
Dual connection.
Especially if we're looking at bringing it up there in this fiscal year, so.
Our budget's pretty tight on the visitor center, so.
Well, maybe we would allocate, well, I guess.
Well, we could use part of this, I guess.
That's what
to
I'm
do that,
thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
We'd have to design, have to design it and bring it up. And I don't know if the timing, we'll look at it. I don't know if
Okay.
the timing will work out.
Thank you.
Hearing's closed, sir. What's the council's pleasure?
Then I'll move the resolution.
Motion for approval by Mr. Oden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mills. Again,
That's as modified,
as modified, yes, especially on the capital projects.
that unscheduled capital project, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Any
Thank
further
you.
questions or comments? I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Rose Bergen?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye. It's 4-0. It's deemed unanimous. We have a budget for the CRA. We'll now turn to public comments. Anyone wishing to address the Community Redevelopment Agency, we will have public comments later on in tonight's agenda for the City Council. Please come forward at this time.
It's Mr. Holland again. I just want to say that the 6 houses is much too little. And it's been years and years and years since there's been development there. We had Coachella Valley Housing come in, and they built approximately 30 homes over about 3 or 4 years. And then after that, they left the area, and then the city's coming in with 6 houses. Okay, that's not enough. Okay, and the reason I say that is because there's been taken out, they have rezoned the area where there was potential for about 100 families to live in apartments. They rezoned it and made it single-family houses, and the fourplexes that's there is single-family now. And we have like 1 year before all the apartments there have to be converted to one house at the expense of the owner. not of the city, the expense of the owner. And I'm really concerned about that because of the fact that there's some old people that have worked hard and got their homes and got their little apartments or whatever they have, and now it's time for them to do like the person at 400 Avenida Circa is to walk off and leave it because of the fact that they will not have the money to make those single-family houses. And I want to point this out. It's a great opportunity, and it's not a waste of money to accept the apartment the way it is right now because all the asbestos has been taken out of it. It still has a structure there. Now, in any construction company, tear down cost is a lot, okay, and then you have to rebuild. As the building sets now, it's more valuable than it would be if it hadn't, asbestos and stuff hadn't been taken out of it. And I do propose to make a single family resident home for senior citizens there, a 6-bed facility which would help the people in the neighborhood. As I say again, it's not too late, but it's too little, okay, if you want to address the issue. And I'm going to keep coming, and I'm going to keep saying the same thing because I don't want this to go by like it's nothing happening and there's no accountability. The city made a policy that they've been sticking behind, and I don't think it's a good one when you take a fourplex and make it a single-family home at the expense of the homeowner, not the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the council during public comments for the CRA? Close public comments, and we'll go to our legislative calendar. Item C is the Coyote Run Apartments lot line adjustment. This is a simple housekeeping piece. Does agency need a staff report on this?
I'll move the resolution.
Motion by Ms. Rella Spurgeon, and a second by Mr. Oden. And any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It is 4-0. We'll adjourn as the CRA and reconvene as the City Council. First item before the City Council is public comments. I have 2 cards here. I don't see these individuals in the audience. Robin Burns or Sergio Santo? All right, then we'll strike them. Anyone else wishing to address the council during public comments?
Can only mean one thing. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council.
It's June. I wonder what's going on.
I don't, well, first Saturday's coming up here pretty quick. My name is John Allen. I represent the Palm Springs Firemen's Association. First off, the Palm Springs Firemen's Association would like to wish Dana Hodges a speedy recovery and best wishes. I am here tonight to invite everybody to our 72nd annual Palm Springs Firemen Fish Fry. 72 years we've been doing this now. As many of you know, we are a nonprofit group that is comprised of every fireman in Palm Springs. We do this as an event to get back in touch with our community. This is a time to come out and spend an evening at Ruth Hardy Park with your local firemen. Meet us under non-emergency situations. Back when this was first started, the firemen used this event to raise money to buy equipment for the fire trucks. Today, we put the money to other uses. We sponsor many youth organizations in the city, including the Palm Springs High School Band, the Palm Springs High School Scholarship Fund, youth soccer and baseball teams. We host our annual Easter egg hunt, also held at Ruth Hardy Park. We adopt families during the holidays, and many, many more functions and events that we support. So in closing, come out to Ruth Hardy Park on Saturday, June 7th, and enjoy a great fish dinner prepared by your local firemen. And for $7, it's the best deal in town, $7. You get fresh trout, a salad, roll, corn on the cob, watermelon, and a live band. We'll also have drinks available, and we'll have a raffle. So for $7, there you go. So we'll see you Saturday. Thank you.
Outstanding. I understand, John, you were in the original founding organization, the committee that formed this 72 years ago. Is that true?
That's inconclusive.
Can neither confirm nor deny, huh? All right, very good. Always good to hear the fish fry. I've been going for years, and it's a great community event. If you got a chance to get down there Saturday, come on down. Real casual. Enjoy it. Any other public comments? Otherwise, we'll close public. Yes? Come on down, Steve.
My name is Steve Kramer. My address is on file with the city clerk. Mr. Mayor, members of council, as a homeowner and taxpayer of Palm Springs, I'm outraged at the scare tactics propagated in public comments and featured letters to the editor by the Palm Springs Police Officers Association and the Palm Springs Police Management Association. Recent misrepresentation by these groups regarding the current budget crisis facing the city of Palm Springs have been put forward in an attempt to scare the public in order to further their own personal agendas and line their pockets with taxpayer dollars. How dare the representatives of these groups insinuate that our elected representatives and city manager would put public safety at risk? The PSPD does not operate in a vacuum. Safety departments account for 49% of the city of Palm Springs budget and should shoulder a commensurate amount of reductions when the city faces a very real and severe $4 million deficit. To put forth a position that a reorganization of PSPD staffing is a cut in city safety services is an obfuscation at best and an outright lie at worst. Staffing community policing programs like DARE with CSOs or volunteers instead of sworn officers so that those officers can go back to patrol duties is sound policy, not a cut in safety services. The fact is, we taxpayers owe much of our current budget problems to a police department gone wild. Over $690,000 in overtime. How about a take-home vehicle program that wastes over $1 million of taxpayer money? The budget task force can't even get a straight answer on how many cars are involved in the program. Try 75 to 80, not 40. These cars are driven as far as Yucaipa and the high desert. Government needs to be transparent and accountable, not a guessing game. This massive boondoggle of the vehicle take-home program must end, and the PSPD needs to end their negative campaign of scare tactics intended to intimidate our elected officials. But of course, this intimidation is nothing new. 1 year ago, during budget meetings, in response to a directive by council to produce only a 2% reduction in departmental budgets, past Chief Lee Weigel refused to consider any structural changes and instead presented to council a proposal of less than 1% that consisted of an elimination of DARE, PAL, and Downtown Experience, the most public-sensitive programs. The chief bluffed, the council blinked. The Palm Springs police unions see themselves as kingmakers who put council members in power through their endorsements and remove them by portraying them soft on crime, as we now see. And so it will continue until the citizens of this town rise up and demand of this body politic that a full police commission be formed under our charter to oversee the police department. A police commission would neither be obstructionist nor rubber stamped to wasteful spending. Rather, it would serve to shepherd a police department that seems to have forgotten that they work for us, the taxpayers of Palm Springs. I call upon all citizens of Palm Springs to write your city council, call the mayor, or speak up during council meetings and demand an empowered police commission to facilitate the reforms necessary and restore our system of checks and balances. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the council during public comments? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Council, you have now before you the consent calendar. Please recognize items 6 and 7 have been removed from the tonight's agenda, and item 8 was dealt with earlier. So what remains is 1 through 5 and 9 through 11. Please note at this time any abstentions. And on item 10, again, it is a 3-year agreement, not a 1-year.
Mr. Mayor, I need to abstain on warrant 988214, husband-related.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Oden?
I'd just like to make a comment on 3, but I can do that after you get your abstentions.
Any additional abstentions at this time?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mills?
On item 11, two warrants.
Please.
988089 and 988226, business-related.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Oden. Additional comments. Mr. Oden, I believe he has a comment on 3.
Yes. On number 3, I just wanted to commend the procurement department just by going through this process of that we have established through purchasing in volume with larger groups. I mean, they're going to, the potential savings for us is anywhere from 22 to 40%, and that's impressive. Just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oden. Any additional comments? We have a motion and a second. I'll call for a roll.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Ross Perigin?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye. Consent calendar has moved unanimously. Item 12 is a public hearing. This is the 2003-2004 fiscal year budget. And Mr. Reddy, I'll turn to you for a staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This year indeed has been challenging for the entire staff and the entire city employees on putting together this budget. I don't need to go into all the reasons why we're facing a budget deficit. However, we certainly know that there's a litany of reasons, but what we're here this evening for is to resolve the issue going into next year's budget. Now, we'd like to outline for you the blueprint for our budget going forward. But first, I would just like to note that certainly we've been asked to do more with less, the entire city staff. And as all of you are aware, and all of us at City Hall are aware, there's certainly not any reduction in service. No one has been calling City Hall, at my office at least, and I don't think anyone else is, and asking for less service. We certainly know there's no lesser requests for street maintenance or police or fire calls or internal services and the like. But we do know that we have less people to perform those services. So I need to thank all of our employees for stepping up to the plate and dealing with these issues at a time when we're in a cutback mode. I also would like to thank the Assistant City Manager, Troy Butzloff, who's put in a tremendous amount of time, along with the department heads, and Tom Kanar, who's been working pretty much day and night to finalize this budget that's before you today. All right, that being said, just a couple caveats before we get into your discussions on the budget. We knew that going into next fiscal year, we would have approximately a $4.4 million deficit. To deal with that type of situation, we have outlined, programmed $1.4 million in staff cuts. I would note those are non-safety positions. Those are positions other than police and fire. Represents about 17 staff positions. That is significant. It was not easy to do. The majority of those were through attrition. We've had some retirements that we did not fill, but I would note that every one of those positions represents a function that we've had to fill the gap in one way or another. And you will see that as we move through the budget and the line items and the positions, you will see how we've attempted to do that. Further, there's been a series of one-time budget balancers, and I would note the operative words there are one-time, which means we will have to readdress it again next year after we've had the ability to stand back a little bit and come up with a longer-term plan. Also then, you will also see that we are requesting approximately $623,000 from fund balance to close that $4.4 million gap. Then moving into next year, we would hope to be able to present you a balanced budget. However, unfortunately, not knowing where the state is going on their budget issues, and also knowing that our increases are rising again next year, we could anticipate another $3 million ourselves. So as we move through the fiscal year that we're presenting you tonight, and with the budget task force that you have appointed, and they're continuing their ongoing work, they've endorsed the budget that's before you this evening, and moving forward, we're looking at various revenues and additional budget cuts and efficiencies that we can present for the following year, but that work is beginning and ongoing continuously. I would just like to note that in one area in the police positions, and I just need to comment that there were four positions that we did not hire this year. Now the chief would note that there was 5, and that 5th one was a position that was funded last year, but it was frozen. So, if we go with the police, the chief's number of 5, 2 of those positions, one is in PAL and one is in DARE. What we're recommending is to fill those positions with non-sworn officers. So what that means is we will move those sworn officers into the patrol side, and we will mitigate that 5, basically mitigates it down to 3. Now it's 2 less police bodies, but yet those 2 are moved into the active patrol side, or they'll matriculate through the system, but those are sworn officers out on the streets in some capacity. So the idea was to mitigate that. So the net result is it would either be 3 or 2. Now, obviously, as we move through the year, you'll have continued movement in the police department, and it's our intention that the hiring freeze will be off and we'll be able to fill those positions, but you will have a net reduction of 3 police officers moving forward out of the safety forces. The other issue that we would like to ask council is that you would lift the hiring freeze in 2 other areas. In the budget before you is funded, but it's frozen due to the hiring freeze, a position in engineering. This is the associate engineer's position. Due to retirement, we did not replace it. However, due to the work we've been doing in the whole development services area, in planning and engineering and in code enforcement and in plan checking, part of the issue to make this whole more business friendly, one of the issues we're finding is that things are getting bogged down in engineering because of the lack of personnel. So that is one position we're going to ask that you unfreeze. Also, we're asking that you unfreeze an assistant planning position. Now, I would just note that in doing so, we're hoping that revenues will be able to offset those changes. Right now, on the next meeting in June, you will have before you a fee study that will take care of our requirements under AB 1600, which will allow us to raise fees that are fair and equitable based on an actual study that we hope will be able to recover those fees in our planning and engineering and code enforcement and the plans examining areas. With that, I also need to bring up one other subject, and that is, as you know, the Development Task Force that did their work and presented it to City Council a few months ago, they had some recommendations. And I would like to ask the Assistant City Manager to pass out just a one-page notation list of what those recommendations were. And as you will see on there, they had basically 3 recommendations. They had recommended in the Planning Department that we hire a planning manager, and in a plans examiner, in the building department, and you see the totals there. Now again, those totals are not budgeted in the budget you see this evening. Those would be additional add-ons. And then you see the technological improvements. That's the online permitting, tracking, planning system. Now, this is one of the things that we strongly recommend, because this would benefit, in essence, every person that comes into our building and planning department. Every time a project, an application is set, they will, in essence, be able to track it along with us. The citizens will be able to track it online in a much more efficient way. And that's very, very much recommended. And then finally, you see the estimated budget impact of all these is the number at the bottom. Now, what I would suggest is that on the online permitting, we know that we can add a specific technological fee for that specific amount. And based on the fee study that will be coming forward, we may very likely, in all probability, would be able to do a certain amount of the other fees as well. But again, it's up to City Council that whatever we agree to here, we would have to find additional money or lay off other people to deal with this deficit. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my opening remarks, and we'd be happy to answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Any additional questions before we open the public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Oden.
What specifically is the staff recommendation in comparison to what the task force recommends?
Councilman Oden, my recommendation is that the most important things from the Development Task Force recommendations, probably to the online permitting, and if I had to choose on the personnel, it would be the plans examiner, because that is the key position that's going to help us with the output of the plans, of the examinations, because that is one of the, that was identified as one of the key choke points, if you will, of the business unfriendliness, because the plans come in and it's a choke point in getting them out. And to the extent that we can add another plans examiner, that problem will be mitigated, and it will be mitigated significantly. And it also is the least cost, I would note.
And where would you be recommending that what funds we would use for this?
In the reorganization that we had, as you know, the current building manager retired, and we were able to, through that, reorganize the department, and we've cut some, we've appointed Mr. Duckworth to be the manager, and there was a lesser salary there. So the salary savings we had there and his ability to do plan checks, in addition to this position, I think will give us the lift we need, along with the other plan checkers, to have more output. So we have salary savings from that reorganization, but certainly it's not the full amount, the $68,000 that you see here. Part of this additional amount, I would suggest, would come from increased development fees. But again, the other position is appreciably more, and I think it would be a little more of a stretch to recover those costs as fully as the plans examiner. So that's why if I had a priority, the plans examiner would be the priority.
Now, I understand that we received some additional funds that were owed to us in, back to TOT.
You're speaking of the marquee?
Yes.
That's correct. Tom, could you comment on that, please?
Yes, we settled the lien that we had against the Marquee Hotel. The bank was the owner and paid the city about a week ago. It was about $174,000 received in the current fiscal year. If you're looking at that as a revenue source, that could be something there, but it's in the community promotion fund as opposed to the general fund. The other problem I could foresee is that the last couple of months the TOT has been down compared to where we expected it to be, and so we might need that to cover those.
Why
loss.
community promotions?
It's
TOT.
It's originally TOT.
Okay.
Transient occupancy tax.
Okay, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Just in our cuts this year, how many cuts did we make in management?
Of the 17 positions, and if I could have some help here, Troy, could you help field that question, please? Of the 17 positions, how many were management?
Is it a number of maps that you're finding?
Yeah.
There was one director position that was the director of information technology. There was the risk manager.
Mm-hmm.
There was the government affairs and grants manager in engineering, public works. I think that I'm looking over here at personnel and over.
Well, okay. I guess my question is, if we're well, that's part of it, yes, Jeannie, and they didn't hear that. But also, if we're increasing more people, who's going to manage them? I mean, where do they fall under whose authority?
In terms of the planning and the what I'm doing in terms of the development services, the development services as a whole is going to be coordinated by the assistant city manager. And that allows me to have the manager of the building department to have the assistant city manager coordinating both the building department, engineering, community development, and planning. Because part of what we were finding, and in the development task force, and what we've all known, is that it's as much a communication issue as anything else. And so this will help us to make that coordination, I think, much smoother. So in essence, the direct reporting will be through the assistant city manager.
Thank you.
And that allows us to, in essence, reduce some of the mid-middle level managers.
Okay.
That's the added bonus.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Additional questions before we open the hearing? All right, with that, this is a public hearing. This is item 12, the 2003-2004 fiscal year budget. Anyone wishing to address the council on this item, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one, we will now close the public hearing and allow for further discussion, questions, and potentially action. Any questions the council wants to bring forward or observations they want to share? The first recommendation I'd like to make is on the issue of funding the Palm Springs International Film Festival. I would prefer that the funding source for the $200,000 request not come from economic development, that we try to keep that fund clean for specifically economic development. We had some issues we've discussed recently about trying to find funds for it. And with the introduction of the $174,000 out of community promotion funds, that plus some additional funds from other sources would still close the gap on the $200,000, but keep our economic development fund whole. So I bring that up for discussion and debate at this time. Again, I don't question the authorization of the funding. I just want to try to change and redirect the source for the purposes of establishing the economic development fund intact.
Well, Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
I guess I had a similar concern, only, I mean, I guess I'm okay even with the source as long as they can somehow justify how it impacts economic development. I mean, I can certainly see ways that it can, but it would be up to them, I think, to show that. If we want to stick with the source. If we want to go elsewhere, I'm okay with that too, but I don't know where.
The pool is there, much like the unscheduled allocations we did earlier in the CRA. It's there when the opportunity comes, you got it. You deplete the economic development fund, which we just put in place by the sale of property. It removes that opportunity for us to make advancements in some opportunities to come forward. So again, just a changing of allocations.
I don't have a problem with that.
Nor do I. So.
Okay.
Mr. Canara, you have a frown. Are you concerned about something?
No, Mr. Mayor, I couldn't hear what Councilman Raleigh Spurgeon said.
That's my voice.
I'm sorry.
I said I didn't have a problem with it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's what you thought I said.
Any problem with allocating from a different source?
What that would mean is that we would increase the budget by $200,000 for next fiscal year. Is that the council's direction for the film festival?
Out of fund balance, so
it would increase the deficit by a like amount.
Yeah, you're protecting the economic development fund and using the additional 174 that came in, plus another 26,000. And again, if that money has gone into your community promotion fund, is that where the 174 went?
Yes.
And then trickled down into fund balance?
That would, yes, at the end of the year.
Then your statement earlier is correct. Yes, sir.
But what we would be doing is taking current year revenue, and then that goes into fund balance, and then appropriating that into next year's budget.
That's why you're here, Tom.
Okay.
So Tom, to clarify,
famous paper trail.
Does that mean we'll be requesting, in essence, an $800,000 appropriation from fund balance instead of the $600,000?
That's correct.
Yes, but you've kept your economic development fund healthy, correct?
We also know where it came from.
All right.
And Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
There's an item a little bit later on in the budget that was going to move that economic development money around, and we can make that adjustment on that on the current fiscal year when we get to that. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Mr. Canard. I'd like to turn the council's attention and staff, if you'll track along with me on page 9, I have some questions. On page 9, item 5 is the Bellardo Road Bridge over Tockwitz. This is just a portion of the funds. I guess I turn to Mr. Smoot on this, or Mr. Barakian. I don't know what this is. A portion of the multiple millions of dollars we received on our funds. Can you explain where the remainder of the monies are? Have they not come yet? And then while you're on it, item 6 is the South Palm Canyon Bridge, the HBRR grant. Have we secured that on South Palm Canyon? Isn't that part of something?
No, we haven't totally secured that yet.
Okay.
But we are
prepared to spend it as soon as we receive it.
Yeah, we've budgeted, and that's the local match portion, assuming that we're going to get the federal money. On Bellardo Bridge, That money is not the total project, obviously. The total project is spread over several years. There's a $3 million federal grant that requires a certain amount of match from the city, a small percentage, and that's what that refers to. That's a portion of the public lands highways money.
Okay, thank you, David. Isn't it PLH-D discretionary? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a missing hyphen there.
Okay. On that same page, item 33 is the online planning and building tracking system based on the handout that Troy gave us. And the asterisk at the bottom of the page, this is to be funded from an assessment on each permit. So that would in fact perhaps move up based on it? Are we going to wait for the funds to come in or borrow against it?
No, we would, Mr. Mayor, in essence, we would purchase it now. We did not want to show it in the current capital budget because that would deplete the 350. And since we're going to do a special assessment, we will do that outside of the capital and make it a separate line item, but we would be able to purchase it now and then pay it back over a relatively short period of time.
Okay, thank you. Item 23, Leisure Center, the painting, and I'm a little perplexed. I was under the impression, and I don't have last year's CIP with me, but I thought we had allocated funds last year for the painting. And can I get a clarification as to, I was under the impression we were going to
Scott?
paint the building this year.
There was some painting done, Mayor, and I'd ask Mr. Mikesell to come forward and explain
Scott
where
actually,
we're at.
we did a little tour of the building several months back when the interior was done, but I thought we were going to go into exterior. That's why I'm kind of confused.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. The interior of the pavilion building is going to be painted relatively soon, or excuse me, the exterior. We're currently awaiting a single bid right now at the present time, and the money that's already allocated in the capital projects budget will cover the exterior costs of doing that. The intent of this request that was originally put through by my recreation manager was for the balance of the building, which is the interior of the leisure center side and the exteriors of those facilities, which are currently not budgeted. However, based upon some of the preliminary numbers that we've recently seen on the exterior painting, we could be in very good shape. That's why I believe the city manager is not recommending this be funded at the present time. This was a request, and it's not in the highlighted column.
Understood. Understood. I only bring it up, Scott, because I thought we had done it, and I need another clarification. I don't know where I heard this, but I was, again, under the impression, and I don't have any documents before me, so I can't substantiate this. When we allocated the monies last year for painting, I was under the impression it was going to be done in-house, and that would have been a cost savings for us because our staff out of facilities was going to paint it for us. And now I'm hearing it's going to go to bid. I don't, somebody help me with this. Wasn't this going to be an in-house job? Wasn't facilities going to handle this?
I may have to defer part of this to Mr. Good because he will interpret procurement laws for you.
Yeah, again, I'm asking because I thought we had a discussion about saving money by going in-house. That's why it seemed so favorable in the last go-around.
We allocated X number of dollars within the painting and replastering account for the city of Palm Springs.
Which is an internal account.
Correct.
Internal staffing.
We originally would have chosen to sub some of that out through hiring of a temporary painter to do work for us.
Yeah.
And we could not do that for various reasons. We would have probably violated some laws according to procurement and the Human Resources Department. So what we did is we spent the time to train our individual employees. And as a result of that, we were able to paint one of the fire stations and some of the interior work, most all of it at the pavilion and part of the leisure center. We did that in-house, saved a substantial amount of money. I believe on the fire station itself, we saved about $50,000.
Yeah.
But based on public works law and contract codes and all of that, that Harold would have to, stuff that I don't understand, it doesn't have anything to do with growing grass. So we are only able to do a certain amount of in-house maintenance according to California Public Contract Code law. and we're working around that with our painting and plastering program. So we're biting off as much as we can chew per year and doing it internally. And then those projects where we want to move them forward, we're looking to contractors to come in. And the exterior of the pavilion building is falling in that category in this current fiscal year.
It is not my intent to circumvent laws and that control and regulate this kind of action, but again, the impression I had was the job was of a size, a caliber, we had a staff of a certain expertise, and it was compatible, and we're going to move forward. And I remember a cost savings involved, so I just bring it to you. Maybe we can get a clarification sometime later after this budget session. On the top of this page here of 8, 9, 10, all the ones that are shaded, the replacement of the council chamber sound system, is that the very system we're on right now?
Yes, and that was mainly largely due to apparently there's problems in transmission and citizens at home, the audio isn't all that good, as attested by Dana Hodges, who calls with some regularity to tell us that she can't hear on her TV, and I've heard that from several other citizens, so that was partly what that is to remedy.
Okay. And the chamber lighting is trying to adjust the quality of lighting so it's a better visual?
Yes.
Okay. On page 10, turning to 17A, can I get an explanation on 17 and 17A regarding the street improvements? What are they and how are these broken down? Again, I'm drawn to this because it does say convention center, and I want to see what we're doing in that particular area.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, these street improvements are the street improvements around the parking lot that we're building on the north side of Amato. And we've estimated them at around $200,000 preliminarily, and we've been able to budget $75,000 for that, so we're still $125,000 short as it sets now.
Well, again, based on the earlier discussion about CIP, I wonder if in fact there's other issues that are above the bar right now that have been funded that can be deferred or held off until a future so that we can again make sure that the convention center is done in its entirety. And I asked the council for some direction on that. It's $125,000. Is staff able to reevaluate the Measure A column above that bar and find a way to pull $125,000 in? I'm just trying to get as finished a project on the convention center. As we went through the last expansion some years back, there were certain things that kind of fell off the budget sheet, and it kind of showed. And I would try to ensure, at least as a member of the subcommittee, that we have as many opportunities to get a complete and finished project. And $125,000 in some street improvements might in fact be something that's noticeable. So is that a possibility? Maybe it's a first quick blush, but.
If I could ask the engineer to come to the microphone, Mr. Mayor, he may be able to shed some light on those projects. Thank you.
Hello again.
Hello, David.
And of course it's possible, but there has to be choices made. If you're looking at Measure A local funds, we have basically about $1.4 million every year, and what's in the shaded is what's being proposed. So certainly, if it's council's direction to give one or more of them up to fund the convention center, it certainly can be done. The question is, which one would it be, or which ones?
Maybe we don't give something up, maybe we just reduce it in the area of the overlays and the slurry seals. Can we reduce this year's overlays and slurries, focus it on the ones that are most needed to get the 125 towards street improvements on the convention center?
And in fact, that's what we did we took it down from our normal $350,000 down to $200,000. That's the lowest we've had since I've been here. I would not recommend not doing maintenance projects, but rather foregoing some capital project if it was.
Some of these, David, as you know, are ones that are required funding for some of our massive interchanges in our Indian and Gene Autry, which are two of our major projects. Of the remaining projects, where can you pull?
There's $100,000 in Farrell and Vistachino northbound right turn lane. That's a lane that's been needed for a number of years since we built Farrell Drive, and we were hopeful in getting it in this year's budget. If anybody ever goes that way in peak hours, it's very crowded. But if something, that's the type of thing that you may have to put off another year if you want to fund the convention center money.
I'm just trying real hard to protect the convention center, make sure it's got as much as it needs. We could find out we don't need it, after the whole thing's all shaken out, but Jeannie.
You have one chance to do the convention center. That street's been that way all these years.
Would you be comfortable in delaying that $100,000, item 16?
Sure.
And allocating that towards the street improvement?
Right.
Gentlemen, how do you feel about that kind of thinking? Again, when we get through the final analysis, the bids come in, we may find that we have more than enough money, we can pull it back out again and realign, or God forbid, it's the higher number and we need more money. But I'm just trying to keep the cushions as high as we can get them. It's a very big priority for this city.
I'm in favor of that as well.
Are we comfortable in at least assigning the council, assigning the task to staff to find the 125 with the direction that 16 be held off for the year and then find the 25 from the remaining sources and let them just figure out on their own what that might be? Mr. Oden, your thoughts, sir?
I think I'd be comfortable with directing staff to find the amount of money and let them come back to us with some specific recommendations.
Making the 125 on the convention center a priority. Okay? Okay? All right. And anything else on this budget before us at this time? Additional questions, comments, concerns, any observations you want to share? Otherwise, we can indeed entertain the idea of a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor? Sorry.
Mr. Canara?
Yes, sir. We had a couple of corrections to the resolution that was in front of you. It was some reallocation of one of the positions, and there was no net change to the budget on that one. It just went between funds. And there were a couple of reductions to the general fund, fairly minor amounts. The net change to the entire budget is a downward reduction of about $10,000. The general fund itself goes up about $4,000, but we would like you to pass the resolution with those corrections in there. There was should have been a single page in your packet that explained that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Canara?
Also, Mr. Mayor,
Ready.
one last caveat, please. On page number 3, on the proposed personnel changes under police, the police chief had made this request, and it certainly seemed fair. I'd just like to bring your attention that you see in the asterisks that the chief is going to try and find some private donations for the DARE program. And if in fact he is successful in doing so, he would like to take the funds that you are allocating for the non-sworn officer DARE program to be able to hire a police officer halfway at the midpoint through the year in January, and the funding would be available then to hire it halfway through the year. That's if in fact he's able to find private funding for the DARE officer. So I just bring that to your attention. But again, you will see that in the actual personnel resolution that comes before you. Thank you.
That action, though, would come forward at that point in time for a final and formal action?
That is correct, in the personnel resolution.
Right.
Sue?
Yeah, I would prefer that we give sort of a nod saying, okay, we're interested in seeing that happen, and then when it happens, bring it forward for formal action so we know what's happening.
At that time.
Address any additional questions.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay?
Mr. Mayor?
Mills?
On page 9, item 20, I wonder if Scott could come up and help me out on this one.
Item 20?
Re-aim and clean the lights.
It's not grass. It's not cutting grass. It didn't make the cut this year, by the way.
No, it did not make the cut, and I want to ask a question. We are increasing our evening leagues, correct? In softball, I think.
Correct. Is this page 9, item 20?
Right.
Okay.
Re-aim and clean lights. Nothing to do with cutting grass, but
Yeah.
maybe you can answer it. My concern is safety here. And if, I've been on a couple of those fields at night when I know the lights are terrible. And I'm assuming it's aiming because all the lamps are in. It's aiming and cleaning. I just don't want to create a problem for people that are using those fields, in the sense that if we're going to do these leaks, I'm glad to see that we're doing them and increasing them, that the facilities at least be handled. I mean, or be maintained enough to make sure that no one gets hurt. And I don't know that we have to re-aim or clean all of them, but certainly the ones that are used for the softball leagues, and maybe that is all of them that you're talking about. But it is not very good infield lighting wise in those areas. At least the parks I've seen, or the two fields I've seen, which were 5 and 6.
This item was proposed to do the field 7 and 8, and I believe the stadium fields. That's not
It does say Sunrise Park. Turn to page 12.
correct.
Item 20, about the fifth or sixth one down.
The part of the reason we don't do this as an in-house project is because we can't get our equipment up that high, and we don't have the ability. It takes a 90-some foot boom truck to get to the top of the light standards, and they're a rather expensive bulb. They last a long time, but they are quite expensive. This kind of dovetails into another project that's listed and is being recommended to be funded, which is our number 11 on the item sheet, is the computerized lighting and irrigation system, so that we can control those remotely, get better life out of them, and not waste any energy. I might propose, Mr. Mills, if you're interested in doing this, that we or I work with the city manager, take a look at maybe one or two other funding sources that we could get creative with, and possibly even do them in the current fiscal year budget if that doesn't impact Mr. Kennard's dollars. I have an idea where we could go.
Or at least in an assessment of how good the quality of the lights are currently. My opinion is we're asking for trouble, and some problem there could lead to more trouble than we want to deal with, based on not going through with a safety issue, and I'm afraid that is a safety issue. So if we could do that, I'm assuming we'll be looking at it again, but potentially. Maybe we don't need to do all of it, but I understand if you're going to get a crane out there, that's the time to relamp anyway, right?
Correct. It's quite expensive to get a crane that's capable of going that high.
Okay. And it's just a thought. I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
Well, again, turn to page 12. It talks about it's been 15 years since the last cleaning and re-aiming. We get a couple of comments once in a while about the lights being on, and they're directed towards my house. They're not on the field. They move, they shake, and otherwise it needs to be aligned. If in fact Scott has an ability to find it in this year's budget, and Mr. Kennard can concur with that, or if they can reevaluate items 1 and 2, which are Measure Y issues, and extract from there the $10,000 or a combination of both. Again, I think if you give staff a direction and allow them the flexibility, I think they can find $10,000 to take care of this thing and resolve it. I have no problem with that.
We may have some flexibility in item number 1. Item number 2 is currently in process, and we're looking for some dollars there at the present time, but I'd commit to working with David and Tom on this, and I believe we can be successful. Now, it won't address a complete replacement issue. That's probably beyond our ability. We'd have to do that through Measure Y down the road.
Is that replacement an upgrade?
Well,
You're referring to
I
or
think
just-
an evaluation by the companies, and they need to come out and tell us what they can and can't accomplish through the re-aiming process as to whether or not, as Mr. Mills indicates, a complete replacement may be in order to improve the safety.
Mr. Mills, you're driving this request. What do you want to do?
I would like to have Scott go back with, and see what he can do on that issue.
Okay.
Certainly will.
For now, securing confidence in what's already prepared and presented, and then directing them to find
Yeah.
a way to get the 10,000 from other sources.
Yes.
Okay? Any other questions or comments? What's the council's pleasure? Got a number of changes, one of them being the film festival coming from fund balance, not economic development. We got some changes in some of the convention center street work, the lighting being an issue from Mr. Mills' standpoint. Anything else? The Kennard's changes and modifications, yes. Thank you, Mr. Roden.
And Mr. Mayor, I would note one other thing. This budget before you does not reflect any labor changes, labor negotiation changes at all. Thank you.
It should be noted, this budget and the one we did prior does not reflect any state impacts either. So as well, Tom gives a little sign as if there's a little bit there. We're not certain as to what the state budget's going to do to our city, or any city for that matter, but we're trying to at least get our house in order and then prepare ourselves for the outcome when it comes. Okay? What's the council's pleasure on this budget? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, could we have some direction on the Development Task Force recommendations, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'm certainly in favor of the city manager's recommendation on the engineering department, staff person, and planning department assistant planner, as well as the tracking system. I think those are areas that are major economic drivers for the city, and we cannot afford to let things slack in that area, and do everything we can to encourage or to improve our image, and as the Development Task Force said, and to speed up the process. I think the tracking system can do that, and the sooner we get started on it, the better, because it's going to take a while to get it working.
The tracking system may cut down people having to come. It's future. It's the way to go. And in the task force, that was the big thing, was this online.
Yeah, I concur with the comments made and the task force recommendation, but their other recommendation was increasing the fees that come from the source.
Absolutely.
And as I've indicated to Mr. Reddy in my discussions with him during the budget sessions during the past couple of months, I'm in full support of doing this, but I would insist, as a contingency on my support, I'll go behind this, but it's also got to be accompanied by a change in the fee structure to cover this. That this is not a drain further on general fund, although it's a great generator in economic. They have to, the developer, those who come through have to start covering some of their costs. And if there's a need for this service, which there is, and a tracking system, which there is, it comes with a price tag. Now, you talk about an assessment, but I'm looking at $366,000 as we continually draw down reserves to kind of backstop this. I would like this to come in with some kind of report that follows, that says, we're going to take this action, and with it, here's the new fee structure to help offset. Maybe it's 100%, maybe it's 75%, but give me some idea what you're doing to cover this cost. So I don't know if you want action on this tonight, or if you just want us to record this and then get back to you when you finalize the entire program.
Well,
Or the
first of
council
all-
could direct otherwise.
Could I get just some for clarification on which of these you would advocate, you would recommend?
The one that.
Your suggestion.
No, besides, the planning, the the engineer associate and the assistant planner are not part of this. Those are already budgeted but frozen. So that is setting aside, I think I'm hearing that you've given me the okay to unfreeze those two positions. They're in your budget. So the question is, there's in essence, there are three things that the Development Task Force is requesting here.
An examiner, a manager, and a software system. Right?
Yes.
That is two of the three. The examiner and the permitting system.
And, Mr. Mayor, my intent was only the tracking system.
The 180.
Right. And the reason being, at this point, I think that is recoverable. I think what we're looking at, and you brought up a good point, which was my assumption, but Mr. Reddy mentioned earlier that we will be seeing that restructured fee schedule, which I am very confident will handle these additional employees and this system initially.
So you're recommending the plans examiner and the tracking
No,
system? Not
only the tracking system.
Okay.
Only the capital improvement, right?
Right.
Again, if you go to page 9, item 33, it's got an asterisk, and the asterisk at the bottom says to be funded through an assessment.
Right.
If in fact you can cover this thing, we asked this question, will you borrow the money? Yes. Will you pay it back to the assessment? Yes. Okay, I can accept that model. But in regards to hiring additional staff, I don't deny we need it, but I think we have to start addressing the fact that this is it's got to cover some of its costs. So that's where the new fee structures start coming in.
I was alluding to the two personnel that are currently in the budget.
In the budget?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then, when the motion is made, will the maker include comments on the tracking system with the requirement that it have some sort of assessment to recover costs during the permit session?
Who made it? I did.
All right.
I made it.
Did you?
I don't know who made it.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
You got Madam Clerk, have you got a motion yet on the floor?
No.
Oh, you forgot you didn't make it.
I think you were making it when someone was commenting. I kind of got lost. All right.
No. Not now.
What's the council's pleasure?
I'll move the budget as amended in our new sheets here that Mr. Canar issued.
Okay.
And including the online permit tracking system with the appropriate assessment to be initiated along with it.
Okay, you have a motion and a second already?
I need a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Rella Spurgeon.
I have a question, Mr.
Yes, sir.
It's just on the fee structure. I mean, I know we don't have it yet, but I guess philosophically, I guess I'd be supportive of that, but it needs to fall within the range of what our contemporaries are doing. I mean, if we're the only ones that are going to be increasing those fees, how competitive will that make us, or less competitive in this arena? I mean, I don't know the answer.
Councilman, that is what certainly the survey will show us, and obviously there'll be a full disclosure and debate before any fees are changed, and council certainly will have that debate.
Okay. So here's what I've got. I've got a motion. I got to make sure the maker and second concur with this. The new sheets as per Tom, and he's going to change some sheets based on the request that the film festival funding come from fund balance, not from economic development. The online permit center software and equipment paid for by the assessment fee. The convention center street improvements to find the 125, and the $10,000 that Mr. Mills brought up with regards to lighting, cleaning, and alignment. We'll let staff try to find out where that comes from. Anything else that you've got that is not in that motion? Maker and second concurs with those?
Yes.
Anything else that I somehow missed? Okay. Thank you. All right, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Rose Spurgeon?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye, 4-0. All right, that's unanimous. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back in about 10 minutes. return to the council meeting, and we'll go to council comments, announcements, and interagency reports. Perhaps we'll forego those based on the lateness of the hour. Let's go to item 13 on our legislative calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'll
Ms. Rella Spurgeon.
I'll move 13, 14, 15 with the appointment of the subcommittee on 15.
Motion on the floor to move items 13, 14, and 15. 15 requiring appointments on subcommittee. Anyone wishing to serve on that particular subcommittee for the hotel and timeshare development at Tockwitz Creek?
How about Chris and Will? Would you guys like to? I think it'd be perfect. Ron, say second.
How's that, Chris?
How about if we build a hospital so Jeannie can do something?
You better do it quick.
Fast track that sucker. Mr. Mills, will you join me in a subcommittee
I would
appointment?
love to do that.
Yeah, I'm certain you would, sir. All right. On item 15, is it clear as to where we're moving on that? Do we need clarification on the fees at all?
No, I believe we understand from the direction from closed session for.
Thank you, sir. And council, you got items 13, 14, and 15, with 15 having a subcommittee of Mr. Mills and myself. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's deemed unanimous. Item 16 has been removed from the agenda. Item 17 is
Mr.
the
Mayor?
Sir.
If I could just make one comment on 16.
Yes, sir, please.
This item was basically going to be on tonight. We've had a conflict of interest item dealing with this. We understand Councilmember Hodges is planning on coming to the next meeting, so we are continuing this to that meeting. We had a considerable discussion with the developer as to whether they could delay yet another week. And they felt one more week would be okay, and so that's reasonable to do that in light of the conflict issue. Just so everyone is aware, if for whatever reason Councilmember Hodges is not able to be at the next meeting, at that point in time, we believe it would be appropriate. This thing's been held for a couple months now. It would be appropriate to then requalify one of the other council members who's been disqualified. We do that by flipping a coin or drawing lots or something like that. And but that's really about as late as they can go on this. So I just wanted to let the council know where we were on that. And we have talked to the FPPC, and I think they're okay with that process.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rusher. I appreciate the clarification. Item 17, Mr. Reddy, I'm going to ask your finance director to get clarification based on the action we took on our prior item. Mr. Kennard, will you give clarification on how this is to be done this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this was the, in effect, the transfer of funds from the Economic Development Program into next fiscal year's budget. The way we were going to do that was by funding in the current year and then continuing the film festival funding and $28,000 of holiday decoration expense. And based on the council direction from the adoption of the budget on the resolution, instead of transferring $350,000 from the Economic Development Program account, that amount would be $150,000. We would still do the $28,000. That would make the total shift $178,000 from the Economic Development Program. That would leave $200,000 in that account. That would be then either at council direction spent on a project this year between now and June 30th if it wasn't included in the items to be continued into next fiscal year.
Okay, now I got to get clarification. I think we had $465,000 in economic development with the sale, and we spent something.
Right, it was $465,000 originally.
Yes,
You
sir.
allocated $87,000 for the Share the Legend advertising campaign
For the
in
downtown
Palm
issue.
Springs.
Thank you.
And that left $378,000. And we had recommended what you see before you, the transfer of all of that money. As I said, we'll reduce that transfer by $200,000.
So you're still drawing down from this then for the film festival?
Yes, sir.
For the base 200?
Well, the way we would do it would be to transfer in $150,000, which is the base amount, if you want to look at it that way, film festival funding, and replace in effect, it appropriates the money in the current fiscal year and therefore replaces money that would have been appropriated next year.
So when you're all done with this proposed funding, what's left in economic development?
$200,000.
So you're still drawing down 178.
That's right.
The council's thought on that?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills?
Although I voted in favor of it, I wasn't that excited about taking the 87 out, because it's not what we really intended that money to be for. It was more towards acquisition or that type of a fund, which we've never had, and which we figured, well, here's an opportunity to establish something, and at least so we'll have it in the future for those things that happen. And now we're depleting even more. My intention was that we find that film festival money somewhere else, and as only Mr. Kennard can do.
And I guess the 174 out of the TOT that was collected from the marquee, although delinquent, was a portion of that $200,000 request. That's how I envisioned it, right?
Right.
That's what we
Right. So is it the intent of leaving the $378,000 intact in economic development, and then again, you're gonna go to fund balance, and where's you gonna go? Gonna go to fund balance and draw all of the 350 out of that, which then makes your drawdown off for this year's budget how much? It seems like
Approximately 828, Thomas?
Well, let's see, we were anticipating, when we came in tonight, drawing down about $620,000 from fund balance. And from the action you did when you adopted the budget, that added $200,000 to it, so that's $820. If you want to leave intact the Economic Development Fund, that's another $178,000, so you're right around $1 million.
it's a different fund, but it allows the economic development to be intact for 78. Of course, you could ask for another amendment and have the $87,000 you pulled out for the last marketing thing pulled from fund balance and replenish your economic development back.
Another paper trail.
Well, then what you need is an amendment to your budget that would indicate that it's all coming out of fund balance. So you've got your base of 625 you started with this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe it was $620,000.
And then you get your 350 on the film festival, and there was a 28,000 for holiday decorations?
Yes, sir.
So you're $1 million. Okay? So is that the direction of the council?
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask for, I'm not sure exactly how we would structure this. It's got to be the quickest budget amendment that we've ever had. But that's essentially what you're requesting, because you adopted the budget in effect with using $178,000 of this money. So if you don't want to do that, then we need to amend the budget that you just adopted a little while ago and increase the appropriation there by $178,000. And I don't know if you can make that as a separate motion or an amendment to the motion, or the motion that you adopted the resolution before.
Do you think we can amend that through this document here, or do you want to bring a fresh document back?
I think you can probably still change the original motion to adopt the resolution on the budget. I'd ask the city attorney for clarification.
I suppose you could reconsider the action approving that resolution, and then after reconsidering it, revise it, and then readopt it in its revised state.
Do we need a separate motion to reconsider?
You'll need a motion
Yes.
to reconsider, and then we'll act on that, and then we'll bring back the item to actually take action on.
Okay, so move motion to reconsider the budget.
Motion to reconsider by Mr. Oden and a second by Ms. Rella Spurgeon to bring the budget back. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Returning back to item 12, I'll turn to Mr. Kennard for some direction as to how he wants this amended.
Well, Mr. Mayor, on this one, you simply just don't act on this resolution and reconsider the resolution adopting the budget, increasing the funding by $178,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional questions or comments? Mr. Kennard is clear on what this is. He's guiding us through this.
Yes.
I'll
Yes,
ask
sir.
the clerk for a roll, please.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Rose Spurgeon?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye. It's 4-0. I'll return back to 17. Tom, give us direction on how you want this structure, please.
It's just pull it, Mr. Mayor, or not acted on?
Not to worry about it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Forego 17. Turn to 18. This is your TSA offices.
I'll move the resolutions.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Rella Spurgeon and a second by Mr. Oden. Any additional comments or questions? See none, roll call, please.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Rose Spurgeon?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye. It's 4-0, it's deemed unanimous. Item 19 is the 2003 general election, and...
I will move 19 and 20 both.
19 and 20 both.
And I'll second both.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're going to draw, how are we going to take care of ties? What's the,
It'll be a special election for ties.
Oh, okay.
It's already there.
we do a special election for tie?
Right. I mean, that's what you've done in the past. So if you approve this as it is, you're staying with what you've done.
Okay.
That's what we've done.
Okay.
We haven't always done that. Since we've been a charter, we've done that,
Well, we've done it,
Since 1994.
right? We didn't do it with Mr. Oden.
well, he was a third.
I was the third. See, that's
He backfilled my vacancy when I went up.
right. It didn't affect the two
So
seats.
we're talking about tie,
Right.
okay.
And there was no tie.
Mr. Oden's election was not a tie election. There was no tie.
In the eyes of the officials, it's not a tie election.
No.
Right.
I see.
Okay?
It's a motion on the floor.
There is motion on the floor. Let's act on it. We have a motion for 19 and 20 for approval. All those in, you want a roll call?
Yeah, wasn't that 18, 19, or 20?
18 we acted
18 we
on,
already did.
Jeannie Rella Spurgeon, Mr.
Pardon
Oden,
me, pardon
and we
me,
did a
yes.
4-0.
19 and 20, pardon me.
19, 20? Yes.
Got it. Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Rose Spurgeon?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye, it's 4-0, deemed unanimous. Are there any additional items, sir?
There are none.
Let's go to reports and requests. On the city council reports and request, the council did meet on Monday and did make planning commission and public arts appointments. I had to leave for executive committee at CVAG. I did not stay for the remaining interviews. I defer to those two members that were on duty that night. Gentlemen?
Chris? You go ahead.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills?
On public arts, Mr. Oden and I, along with the chairperson, completed the interviews, and
We did that.
Yeah.
We did that at the last meeting. That was already
Right.
recorded. Yeah.
but on that, we could not vote on one.
Oh, it was,
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Because I have a conflict, when I still have a conflict, so the rest of the council could take care of that one.
All right.
So I will move the names.
You just Harry.
Mr. Wick, Mr. Harry Wick for public arts is
Yes.
what you're saying.
That's the only one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Wick.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Mr. Oden and a second by Ms. Rella Spurgeon for Mr. Harry Wicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Duly noted. Under Rent Review Commission, what was the committee's recommendation? I wasn't able to stay.
There were two openings. Mr. Joseph Schreck was interviewed, and Mr. Oden and I both felt that he was acceptable. Mr. Leibowitz, I understand, has health problems. Was that what you?
I believe that was what we had got reported back to us. He could not attend.
So there are
because of
two
medical
openings, and we'll only be appointing one person in that at this time.
Okay. How'd you do on Village Fest?
Both of the interviewees,
Mr. Mayor,
We'll
y'all
make
will need to make a motion on that one.
well, can't we group them?
Oh, sure.
Just trying to speed things along here, you know? I got Jeannie kicking me in the side.
Get ready to take him to my hospital.
And on Village Fest Board, Mr. Martin Danielson and Mr. Christopher McAuliffe. I messed that up
And
bad.
the appointments are categorically, who's the at-large? And who is the retailer? Is it a retailer?
No, those are both at-large. One of them is a retailer, but they're both at-large. The jeweler position is still open.
I'm going to turn to clerk for clarification. I believe we had an at-large category and we had a retailer category. And
Then-
we did have a jeweler, but I don't think we had anyone to apply for it. So the question is categorically, who do you want to assign to the retail position?
I think Mr. Danielson was the at-large.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I can check it for sure, but I am.
Is that right, Madam Clerk? The categorical appointments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Danielson was the at-large.
Thank you. And then the other one by default. Very good. All right, you've got 3 appointments before you. We still have to advertise for the jeweler. Right. Okay? All those,
Mr. Mayor, we'll also continue advertising for any of those that you didn't fill. You mentioned rent has still an opening,
yes.
so we'll continue to advertise for that also.
Perhaps you can get a fresh list after all these appointments, what still remains to be done.
Will do.
Thank you. All those in favor of the recommendations before us, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good, esteemed unanimous. We have almost all the appointments filled. Any public reports or requests? Any staff reports or requests?
There are none, sir, except we do request an adjourned meeting on the 11th to handle a couple of the items that we had pulled from tonight's meeting.
You want an adjourned meeting on the 11th?
And then we would
Not a
also
special
ask
meeting.
for an adjourned meeting to handle the issues from tonight and a special meeting to handle 2 new items. One would be the pool equipment filtration system, and another is for a developer's map.
And we're going to go into closed session at 4.
And the request will be to go into closed session at 4 p.m. to handle a variety of issues that we feel will take, we can get caught up on many issues, actually. So we would be adjourning to 4 p.m.
Okay. Okay. With that, we have on June 11th a study session and an adjourned meeting and a special meeting. Is that correct? Preceded by a 4 o'clock closed session. And on June 18th, we have a regularly scheduled meeting, which has a closed session scheduled as of tonight at 5:30. And then on June 20th at 6 o'clock, a reception for the board and commission dinner, and the dinner itself will start at 6:30, and it will be held in the convention center in the Springs A through C room. This is the former Springs Theater, and we're going to be in there for the first time this year. Okay? So we will adjourn our meeting tonight to 4 o'clock on June 11th. Is that correct? Very good. Seeing no further business before the council, it is now 10:27. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you and good night.